Test, test. Test, test. Test, test.
to the audit. So I will now turn it over to you, Adrienne. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you for having me. We're going to show the presentation on the screen, but I may bounce around a little bit, and if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to interject and ask them as we go along. It's going to be very boring if you sit and listen to me the whole entire time. So just as a reminder, this is not up there, but there are a few different parts of the audit, so just to kind of give you an overview. The very first part of the audit talks about the auditor's opinion. And here you'll see that Clarkston received an unmodified opinion, which sounds kind of weird, but it actually is the highest opinion that we as auditors can give. So that's in the very front of the audit with the letterhead from the auditing firm. Just past that is what we call the MD&A, or the Management's Discussion and Analysis. And I would encourage all of you, if you look at nothing else in the audit report, to read that section. It's probably 8 or 9 pages long. It's the most, English version of the audit that you're going to get. So the audit will be posted on the website if you don't already have a copy, so I would encourage you to look at that. Mary Beth and her team helped write part of that as well. So I think it's a great summary about what happened over the past year, and then also what the district is looking ahead at doing as well. Past that is what we call the district-wide statements. And those are a very long-term view of the district. It's a little bit different than what you're used to looking at, and it's where you take all of the different funds of the district, you take all of the capital assets, all of the long-term debt, and very technically you smush them all together and prepare a financial statement. These statements are very difficult to look at from a school district's perspective, because while there are some things you can control your bonds and your long-term debt that way, there are other things you can't control, such as the net pension liability with the state and the net OPEB liability with the state. So oftentimes we don't spend a lot of time kind of looking at those statements, but they are the very first statements in the front of the audit. And then we get to the general fund, which is what you guys are used to looking at and what the main operating fund of the district is. But just a couple of highlights before we get to that. As I said, the district received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion that auditors can give. And there were also no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the district's internal controls. So when we come in and do audits, we, particularly with the federal compliance audit, we actually test the district's internal controls as it relates to the federal programs. Excuse me. And it is quite common for districts to get findings. So there's 2 different types of findings: significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, and Clarkston received neither type of those findings. That's particularly significant after the year we've had with the coronavirus relief funds. It has been a year of unknowns, not only for obviously in the world, but in your business office as you've received money. Sometimes you receive money and you don't know how to spend it, what the requirements are. And the federal government and state of Michigan have had their own challenges and have made it very difficult on your business office as well to kind of know how to handle those. So kudos to you guys for that, because we have had an exceptional number of findings as it relates to federal programs for the 2021 audit. So, and congratulate you as well. As I mentioned before, we also do what we call a single audit or a federal compliance audit, where we actually look at all of the federal programs that the district receives. You actually receive a separate audit for that. That also gets posted on your website. And we actually audited, let me check my notes here. We audited 73% of the federal funds over the past year. So we did the child nutrition cluster, as well as the coronavirus relief funds, and again, received an unmodified opinion as it relates to your federal compliance audit, and no findings there as well. So kudos to the district for that. So this is the statement of net position. I'm not going to go through all of the numbers, but this is most like a balance sheet for a for-profit company. We talked a little bit about the different types of liabilities that are shown there. You do have a negative net position of $171 million that primarily relates to the net pension liability and the net OPEB liability. There are very few districts in the state of Michigan that have a positive net position. And most of those have, 5 students or something to that. So doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, it's just kind of the way it is. A statement of activities. Again, this is the activities of the entire district. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but it does report all of your funds and includes the changes in debt and capital assets as well. But what most of you care about here is the general fund. And this is just a graph that kind of illustrates the change in fund balance that the district had. So if you want to kind of look at a statement, you can look at page 23. That's the budget to actual statement, and here it is kind of in graphical form, this page and the next. But just kind of wanted to give some highlights of the general fund over the past year. So revenues were up about $7.6 million, so about 8.2% from the last year. You won't see these numbers, so I'm just giving you these highlights. Expenditures were up $9.7 million, so about 10.7%. Of that increase in revenue, about 4.6 of that is CARES-related funding. So that's a one-time funding source. So you were able to add $3,787,000 to your fund balance this year, as most districts in the state of Michigan were able to add to your fund balance. But I just caution you because a lot of those revenue sources won't be repeated in future years. I know Mary Beth has shared that with you, but I just want all of you to be aware of that as well. You absolutely may.
Am I correct that the majority of that money is CARES Act or money related to COVID?
Correct.
So it's one-time money that has an expiration time frame that has to be paid for. It's not like we're putting excess money or we're not.
You're not storing it up, correct. Correct. And you're very limited in what you can spend those dollars on. So because they're one-time funding, you can't necessarily go out and create a bunch of new programs because you won't have funding sources to continue that. So a lot of that type of funding was supposed to be used for PPE and cleaning supplies and dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. There's been a lot of, as you all know, a lot of unknowns, and the environment has been constantly changing. So I think what you will see next year, I think for a lot of districts, you're going to see this upward tick in fund balance, but I think as some of those funding sources go away, you're going to kind of start to see that, decrease as well. So we have a little bit of a one-time uptick there. So I always calculate your fund balance against your next year's budgeted expenditures. So Mary Beth may give you a little bit of different information. But your fund balance now represents 14.29% of your 21-22 budgeted expenditures. So what you budgeted in June of 21. So your number from Mary Beth could be a little bit different. There is still a lot of unknowns that is going out there. So having a fund balance is not bad, but you are absolutely right. You're not taking this 3.8 and holding it away and saving it for a rainy day. It's the timing of some of this COVID money that has come through. And so then to kind of look at the budget as well, the budget in a school district is extremely important. We have to report the original budget that the board approves, which you would have approved in June of 2020. So many unknowns at that point in time. and then also what you would have approved in June of 2021. So this is actually on page 23 of your financial statements, if you want to look there. I try to just provide things. I know for most people, reading financial statements is not a fun treat. I actually happen to like it, but we tried to provide it in the same information in different ways, so it's easier for everyone to read. But you have just shy of $100 million budget, and your expenditure budget you had planned to spend $101 million. You spent just over 100. So the variance there was $602,000, which is 0.6%, which is awesome. So Mary Beth and her team did a great job there. The state looks at a 5% variance, and anything above a 5% variance is where they get concerned, and you can start to get notices. But 600,000 out of 100 million is awesome. So these are the different areas. And again, they're shown on page 23 as well. Any questions about the budget? And then I'm not going to go through all of these numbers. Just different information for you as the board to kind of look at the information graphically instead of just seeing it in a financial statement. So we did it for expenditures here and then also for revenues there. So it's just always just very interesting to see how comparable school districts are from year to year, which is what you want to see. You don't want to see unusual outliers. And again, at the last page here, we go through some suggestions. These are not to the level of findings. These are not to the level of saying that your business office is in any way not doing what they should be. But just a reminder that the business office has had a rough year, just like everyone else. You've had some changes in your business office as well. So Mary Beth got to deal with the auditors in a different way this year, and she did a great job. But just a reminder to continue to support your business office as they're trying to navigate their way through COVID monies and a lot of unknowns. And there will be a new accounting pronouncement related to leases. So there's no longer anything called an operating lease any longer. So right now we have an operating lease and a capital lease. Now all leases will be shown on your balance sheet. You guys don't do a lot of leasing, so that should not impact you. But really, I think what's useful for the readers is that there's a lot of hidden costs and a lot of hidden interest rates in leases, and that will start to come to light on financial statements. So shouldn't affect you too much. And then there's just some guidance here related to COVID-related funding. So again, I'm not going to go through this in great detail. I believe you all have a copy and can look at that. But kind of just there are three things I want you to kind of leave with the presentation today. So number one is understanding the type of opinion that the audit, that the district received in their audit. So again, just as a reminder, received an unmodified opinion for both the financial audit and the federal compliance audit. I want you to have an understanding if the district had any findings. So we talked about that. There were no findings on either the financial audit side or the federal compliance side. The federal compliance side determines if the district is considered low risk or high risk, which translates into work and dollars for both the auditors and the business office. So you are still considered a low risk auditee and had no findings. And then the third thing is understanding if you had material journal entries. So also included in your audit packet is this letter here. Your audit letter is extremely boring, which is exactly what you want. You do not want an exciting audit letter or an exciting audit for that matter. And if we had come in and made material journal entries, then I would be required to disclose that information to you. So you can see in the letter that we did not have material journal entries. That means that what the information that the business office is given to you is good and accurate, and I'm not coming in and making changes to that. And you want to know that the information you're getting to make budgetary and programmatic decisions is accurate and correct. So again, again, no material journal entries there as well. So overall, a great audit. For a challenging year in particular, no findings when a lot of districts are having findings, particularly when you're having a lot of business office turnover with Heather leaving and then her replacement. So all in all, a great audit. So, excuse me. Are there any questions and I know that I just kind of hit the very high level. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have anything. All right, and then I just will remind you that in the footnotes to the financial statements, which are dead set in the middle, if you can't sleep, it's a good place to read, but if you do have questions about the capital assets or debt or pension of the district, you can go in there and get a lot more detailed information. Like I said, I just hit the high levels, but it's available for you if you want to look into that, so.
Thank you. Trustees, no questions for that. Are there any members of our community here in attendance tonight who had any questions for our auditor regarding the audit? That's a thumbs up, not a hand raise. Okay, very good. Okay, seeing none, then we will take a short break, I guess, ladies and gentlemen, and we will begin our business meeting at 7. Thank you so much for coming.
So I just
Hey,
wanted
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. And just as a reminder, since we're back at the high school, that the sign-in sheets to address the board are at the entrances of the room here, and that's also where a copy of our bylaw is posted. And so if you wish to address the board on an agenda item tonight, and our agenda is fairly healthy this evening, that you need to get signed up fairly quickly because we do pick up those sign-in sheets when we get to item 3, so I can see who wishes to address the board on an agenda item. That's when they are collected. So that comes up pretty quickly. Obviously, you'll still be able to sign up to address the board on item 9, which is on any topic. You'll be able to do that throughout the meeting. So additional sign-up sheets will be placed on the tables at those times. Also a reminder that speakers will be limited to those who follow the correct procedure, which is detailed on those sign-up sheets. So please fill out the sign-up sheet as directed. And we will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. McLean, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mrs. Crane,
Here.
Mrs. Egan,
Here.
Mr. Meyer,
Here.
Mrs. McGinnis,
Here.
Ms. Catalina, Mr. Neese,
Here.
Mrs. Hoyt.
Here. Mrs. Catalina sends her regrets. She had a personal emergency come up today and will not be joining us. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community hearing. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda items 3 and 9. Item 2 is approval of the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as presented.
Support. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 3 is citizens' requests to address the board. You are given 2 opportunities to address the board. Under item 3.1, you can request to address the board about any topic that's on tonight's agenda. And under item 9, you are welcome to address the board on any topic. When making comments, please state your name and address and direct your comments to Mrs. Kelly Horst, President. Each person may speak for up to 2 minutes. Per established procedures, the board will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment. As a reminder, anyone who engages of criticism and/or personal attack of an individual, whether by name or any other identification, will be stopped and prevented from doing so. Calling out individuals in this forum is inappropriate. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. I remind you to please keep your remarks and your attention directed to the full board. Mrs. Seaman, who directs us up from the control room up there, let me know tonight that we have moved the microphone slightly. The one that is in the mezzanine level, can you see it, is over here now in the corner. I see a gentleman here in a great flannel shirt. It's the time of the year. It's right behind him in the corner here. So that is the microphone for the mezzanine, I guess, area, and our other microphone here is down in front as usual. So as Ms. McLean brings me the sheet, give me just a moment to see if we have anyone who wishes to address the board on an agenda item. Okay, so everyone who signed up under equity or DEI, I'm assuming that all of you would like to go when we reach that agenda item, right? Number 5? Okay, so Mr. Osterman, Mr. Parkin, Mrs. Giampatroni, and Mr. Gonzalez. I will call all of you after we have our presentation and our board discussion, then I will call all of you up at that time. All right, we will move on to item number 4, Superintendent Update. Dr. Ryan.
Thank you, President Horst, for our community this evening. I have a couple updates. First, on the business end, literally, earlier this evening, we had a presentation by our auditors, outside auditors for Clarkston Community Schools, who presented a overall review of the district finances over the last 12 months and came to the conclusion with 0 negative findings and provided Clarkston with the highest recommendation in terms of overall accounting and management of district finances as they look at many schools across the state of Michigan. So it's a point of pride for our business office, our executive director, Mary Beth Rogers, and the entire team. I just want to publicly thank you for all the hard work. That's especially in light of this year, as many know that it's been extraordinary in terms of difficulty in managing in and out federal and other funds as they've come to try to mitigate some of the effects of COVID. So again, my respect and my thanks for all the hard work that you and your team put in throughout this year. Thank you. Secondly, as it relates to COVID, one of those things that made it very difficult to manage this year, this past week is looking at the overall COVID rates within the Clarkston School District area is at a rate about 51.5 per 10,000, which if you look at the overall path over the last 2 years, that does not represent as significantly as we've had overall in the past of the height of the pandemic last year, which we had rates as high as upwards of 150 plus. So we're very operationally sound right now overall. We are feeling the effects across our district in pockets, especially we have classrooms that are being managed more aggressively in terms of the district looking at distancing and other things within those classrooms. But I'm here to report we're doing our absolute best, and I see no reason that we're going to be able to have to deviate from keeping our kids in school now and throughout the rest of the school year. We're managing forward, and it's to the credit of our principals, our teachers, and the entire team that's helping to kind of keep this school year on the rails. And we think it's absolutely critical for our kids to have that consistency. Obviously, we're going to continue to keep our eyes open and manage anything that we have in front of us in terms of making any changes or moves and recommendations to keep us all in school. But I see the foreseeable future in a really positive light of keeping us in that direction. So that being said, some things of celebration over the last several weeks that I want to share with our community is I want to congratulate our Wolves diver, Zoe Paxton and Madison Verbicki on Friday night, this past Friday at the OA Blue League Championship. Zoe and Maddie both broke the 11 dive school record, which is a huge significant piece in Clarkston, as you guys know how competitive our diving has been. So congratulations, ladies. Second, I want to congratulate varsity golf coach Leslie Hallman. She was selected as the Regional Coach of the Year by the Michigan Golf Association and will be honored at the Hall of Fame Coach of the Year banquet in August of 2022. This past weekend also, our Clarkston High School marching band competed on Ford Field. It's an extraordinarily competitive field that they took part in, and of the top field of the state, the crest of the teams, they took 6th in their flight. And it's an incredible honor having watched them also perform here several weeks ago at the regional invitation here we had in Clarkston. You know, we really bring a tremendous amount of pride, not only in athletics, but when you see our marching band take the field and the pride that they carry for our community, it really gives you a lump in your throat and gives you goosebumps. So I just want to say to Mike Lewis and the entire marching band family that we have out there, congratulations. This weekend coming up, looking forward, the Clarkston Junior High School Drama Club will present Little Mermaid this Friday and Saturday. This past Friday, we also had a visit, and we hosted Northern Michigan University in the Women's in Construction. It was at Clarkston Junior High. Another example, as you heard weeks ago when we presented the career-focused education that we have here in Clarkston, of getting young women, especially focused into the construction and trades industry. It was literally a big part of the entire junior high was taken up with hands-on construction, everything from heavy equipment to futuristic type blueprint designing and a lot of different fields in between. And we think it's really, really important to make sure not all of our students get exposed to this, but we really want to encourage our girls to enter into these high-paying and very lucrative careers along the way. And with that, I also want to tip my hat with the help of our community and the CHS Kids Care Club. Collect and disperse over 100 costumes for Halloween for students and community children that were in need. And they're now collecting children's coats through November 26th in the high school main office. So if you have an extra coat laying around that you feel like might help a child in need, as you see the temperatures begin to drop here this fall and have time, we'd really appreciate if you could drop that off at Clarkston High School. And finally, another tip to our community ed in Clarkston, this past Saturday, they hosted the Mother-Son Dance. Having been a veteran of many, many years of the father-daughter dances, it's been an event that's been growing in popularity, and at last count had up over 440 students and their moms attend this great event. And I think it's another example as we try to get back to a sense of normalcy in Clarkston, a feeling of community, of having the type of events where we can really kind of showcase and give opportunities outside the classroom and for our families to kind of engage together with the support of our school district. So I want to again tip my hat. It's actually Ms. Rogers again, who has a large part with community ed, and because of staff night, she actually rolled up her sleeves and was a big part of actually managing all elements of that event that night. So again, thank you. So that would be it's a little bit of an extended update, but a lot of good things to celebrate in Clarkston, and I don't want any of it to fall through the cracks. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Ryan. We'll move on to presentation items. We have several tonight. 5.1 is an art history presentation, and we'll call it Mrs. Fuller, Mrs. Kalinowski, and our art history students.
Good evening, board. That is on. That was loud. Sorry. Greetings to all the citizens of Clarkston. I'm Mrs. Fuller. I teach art history with Miss Kaplan Rudolph, who couldn't be here today. We take a field trip to Detroit every year, and Miss Kalinowski brings her architecture students with us. And then we have today also our art history club manager, I guess we could say, really, Morgan. And then we have Caitlin. And it's her birthday today. And we also have Emma and Stella with us. They were all on the field trip and said that they would come in and say a few extra words that go along with our video presentation. I'm Mrs. Fuller, and I teach art history with Miss Kaplan Rudolph. And this is such an extraordinary class because we have unique opportunities like our 2 field trips. We go to the DIA, and we also have our architectural art history tour, which you're going to see some videos and photographs from. And what I love about this particular field trip is a lot of our students have never really experienced the city of Detroit other than the stadiums. And so they are always very surprised when they get inside these buildings and realize how beautiful our architecture is.
part with the breast cancer survivors is awesome. And American Pony. It's really great. Highlights. Hi, Fox Theater so far. It was amazing to get a tour and just be the only people in there and hear about all like the history and look at all the beautiful architecture and just hear like how it came to be. So that was pretty fun.
My favorite part of our architecture field trip thing, like going to Detroit, was probably going to the Fox Theater and seeing all like the cool like designs on the ceiling and all the cool like facts. And then we also got to go on stage, which was very cool. And also just like when we got to like choose between the two conies. I know it sounds funny, just conies, but that was a lot of fun.
My favorite part of the field trip was walking around the city, and I like American Pony. Pudding Island, yeah.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Fuller, and this is Patri, our exchange student from Spain. And when we were on our field trip to Detroit, we ate at the National Coney Island and Lafayette Coney Island for the comparison of the conies. And Patri was with me at the National Coney Island, and she said it was pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Like it.
And then she went next door and got the Lafayette, and she said it was better.
Yeah.
And then she checked out the bathrooms at both conies. And after she came back from Lafayette, what did you say? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
She says,
But
this is better here at National. This is better because the bathroom is
nasty. So nasty. Yeah.
American architecture at its finest, a bathroom.
Seeing the green room where all the performers sign their names and stuff, I thought that was really cool.
My favorite thing was the Fox Theater, and I was only at one Coney Island, and it was the American one.
Okay.
So what excited me most about the architecture field trip was the Fisher Building. It was the first building we went to, and the moment I walked in, I was surprised. The 40 kinds of marble were absolutely beautiful. The acrylic paint and the gold leaf that was used for the small arches in the hallway paintings, those were incredible too. They were stunning to look at. The gold circle on the floor surrounded by the sections of terracotta, that was incredible to look at. It still shined even though it was really, really old. And the level of detail in the arches above on the second floor, that was incredible too. All right, that's it.
I just really enjoyed walking around and seeing all the places because I had been to Detroit before, like multiple times, and I had never seen it in the way I saw it on this trip.
I thought the floor of the Fisher Building was pretty cool. I liked how there was 100 different kinds of marble in the floor. And I also enjoyed the Fox Theater. I thought it was really cool how I walked in and I was just taken away by how big it was.
What was unique about the Fox Theater was how many mistakes there were throughout it and how important those were to the actual Fox Theater itself. I thought what else was cool was the spirit of Detroit and the sculpture that was put and made out there in Detroit.
No one ever believes us that that's Canada. Yeah, thank you for watching. And, you know, the student who was talking about the flooring, I have to say that I learned about him after the field trip was that he wants to be a geologist, and he was fascinated by the marble. And he kept talking about it, and kids were like, why is he so obsessed with the floors? I said, well, they're beautiful. But then I found out more from him later, so that was pretty neat. And I forgot to mention, we had enough room that Ms. Verkest was able to bring our foreign exchange students with us also. So that's why you heard some pretty thick accents, and that was an awful lot of fun to be able to include them. All right, next up.
Do you want to hear from the kids now?
Hi, I'm Morgan, and as you can see, I attended the architecture field trip in Detroit, and it was just absolutely breathtaking. All of the buildings that we went to were amazing in their architecture, and not just the architecture, but the stories that in the Fox Theater, we had a tour guide, and he told us all about the history of it and all the different things. And I remember they were talking about how there was this one elephant at the top that was, the trunk was supposed to be pointing up, but it was pointing down when they finalized it. And Mrs. Fox was very not happy about that. And just hearing all of these stories, and in class we also learned about like the inspiration where the things that inspired this architecture and these architectural trends at the time periods that these buildings were built. And not only getting to learn about that in class, but then see that in real life just was absolutely awesome. Because it's like, oh yeah, we learned about that in class. Oh yeah, that's a Ionic column, or that's a Corinthian column, and just like all the things that were so far away were now just within reach for us. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Caitlin, and yes, I am wearing the same sweater as I was in the video. I just noticed. I really had a good time on the field trip because we, like as Morgan said, we were just learning about all just like columns, for example, and we were also doing a project alongside like this field trip. So after going and seeing like all the cool like architecture, like I could incorporate that into my own project. We had to like draw something and, make our own like castle almost. And so it was really cool just being able to see like not just stuff on like a presentation, like on a Google slide, like we actually got to see it in real life. And it was very like beneficial for our school project, so.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I thought it was really cool when we were seeing all the architecture in Detroit, how all of it was so like different from one another based on the types of parts that were put into it. And it was really evident in the things that we learned why they were all so different. And it was all the different time periods like kind of combined together in the history of the different architecture styles. And I thought that was really cool.
I'm Stella, and I did not make it into the video for an interview, but as many other people
brought you on board now.
Yes, I do get to be included. But as they said, like in their interviews and now, it was very cool to be able to like apply what we learned in class into seeing it in real life. And I've lived here all my life, been to Detroit like 1,000 times. Never once have I like taken a moment to appreciate what goes into building these buildings and like how they look. And I've been to Fox Theater at least twice. I didn't know that they left like the piece codes on the ceilings. So if you go in there, now you know you can see ceiling tile 61A, because they didn't cover it up because they ran out of paint. And I think it's super exciting that like our foreign exchange students got to learn this along with us who have lived here all our lives. And I don't know, I thought it was a very cool field trip, and I like that we didn't get lectured the entire time about like learning it while we were there. It was nice to learn it beforehand and then like see it and get a real life experience.
Thanks again for letting us come and bring our students to showcase some of the things that we're doing in our class. I think one of my favorite parts of doing this field trip is a lot of times we miss that moment of awe in our classroom when students are learning. And it's just so very evident, and every time we go into one of these buildings, even I still have that moment of awe, but especially for the students to see it at firsthand is it's what keeps you coming back every time. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll tell you what we've missed. We've certainly missed that moment of awe of just having students in the boardroom too and hearing from all of you. So this is probably the first group we've had in the last, well, certainly 18, 19, 20 months. So thank you very much for coming tonight and sharing with us. I'm so glad you got to go on the field trip, and we're certainly glad you came to share it with us. We appreciate it, ladies. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, Caitlin.
Happy birthday. You go celebrate now. Thank you. All right, our next presentation, 5.2, is a construction tech experience at Northern Michigan. Mr. Wyckoff will come share that with us. I love that it's about students tonight.
Thank you very much. First thing I would like to say is, ladies, where are you? Did they all disappear already?
They ran.
They were fabulous. I have 18 seniors, all boys. I asked them all to come up here to say something. 2 of them said, okay. Somehow they came up with a better option. I don't know. So anyways, this is the second year, the second trip we have taken up to Northern Michigan. We went up there 2 years ago, made a commitment with Northern that we'd come back up. They're wonderful hosts. The kids who get through our program that end up going to Northern, they get to skip a couple of their classes. We have a really great articulation that way, and they really, really look after our students. You know, I'm on the phone with the head of the department more than once a month. How's so-and-so doing? How's so-and-so doing? Okay, I'll see him when he gets home. Okay. Oh, they want to jump to another college? That's all right. We support them. And Mike up there is like, Steve, you never know when they're going to come back. It's just a great thing for the kids. So we want to continue to do this every other year. So the support from Clarkson is wonderful. So let's go ahead. How do I work this? Right or left? Goes up and down? All right, thank you. All right. Okay, we had 27 students go, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, 4 adults, instructor Adam Goring, Neil Granlund, counselor Sarah Hester, and myself. We departed at 7 a.m. on a Friday morning. That was my biggest fear, that they weren't going to get there on time, because so many times they can't seem to manage that little thing. But we got out before 7. It was wonderful. We were at the bridge in no time. Saturday, we did our tour of the university. We did Marquette City for a little while, and then cruised home. So totally, we were gone 38 and a half hours and on the bus for 14. About 6 kids said they'd never been across this bridge. I said, you can come sit next to me and close your eyes if you want. It's only 5 minutes across. They're like, their faces are right there. So it's a great opportunity for them to get out of Clarkston and see what's over the bridge. Of course, we promised them McDonald's because they all wanted McDonald's. McDonald's wouldn't take a charter bus. So we went into St. Ignace, knocked on the door, said, could you handle 31 people? They said, well, we have 2 waitresses, do you mind? It was the best food we ever had. It was wonderful. They treated us great. Jumped on the bus for another 3 hours, and then we turned out into the Superior Dome there. It's the largest indoor football stadium in the world. The kids were kind of fired up about that, but they were also dragging. And there's Mr. Head right in front of the camera. So after we went through the Superior Dome, we went to the rec center, stretched our legs, played volleyball, ping pong. They did some weightlifting. They beat on the other instructors in basketball, and then none of them could beat me in ping pong, though. This was the highlight for a lot of the students. Went to the hockey game. There's Mr. Goring there with his thumbs up. A wonderful new teacher for the program. A bunch of seniors right there. They were playing Bemidji College, ranked 19th in the country. Northern wasn't ranked, and they lost 5-4, so it was a pretty good game. Now, Willie, the mascot, is loved by our counselor, Sarah. Sarah was throwing the little kids out of her way just to get this picture. It was not a character moment for Miss Hester. Here's a couple alumni. There's Jagger Woody. I've known Jagger since he was in probably 2nd grade, and there was no way Jagger in the northern Jersey was ever going to go to college. Here he is, a sophomore with a smile on his face, and he's going, I don't know how I'm doing this. Nate is up there as a freshman. He's going into electrical engineering, and Livy there. Mike, the dean of the program, he says, Steve, I've been here for 20 years. I've seen a lot of resumes. This young lady has the best resume he has ever seen. She came down this past Friday, set up for Women in Construction. She was leading the show. She's an all-star, and she's gonna buy our program a lot of tools down the road. Okay, and we took them around the campus next day. Checked out the dorms. Interesting thing about this, the dorms behind them, fairly new. The parking lot in front of them used to be where Mr. Mister's dorms were when he went to Northern. So he was saddened by that somewhat. The kids all thought that was pretty entertaining. Toured the academic buildings, the construction management building. They have a building about as big as this room just for scaffolding set up. It's an amazing place they got. And they don't think it's good enough, so they're going to pump about $58 million into a new program. There it is right there. It's really, really super long. It's hooked to a room with 60 welding machines. Pretty cool stuff. Then because Neil, Mr. Mister, is from the UP, going down to Marquette, he gave the kids the Uper tour. And he is the voice of Clarkson, so everybody was tuned into him. You can see how beautiful it is up there. None of the students knew what that is. That is how they put the ore in the ships. We got a close-up look at that. They were all fascinated. He said, hey, you got to Google it, you guys. So for about 5 minutes, they were checking out how that worked out. There's a city. And really, the nuts and bolts of it, what did the kids get out of this? They got mostly out of it was, I have students who never dreamed of going to college. Now they go to this atmosphere with these kind of professors, and they're like, I can do this. This is exactly what I can do. Math isn't that hard anymore. This isn't fractions, this is measurements. It's a whole different arena when you look that way. You know, the one kid at the bottom quote there, college is not as scary as I thought. You know, some of them were afraid just to go into the cafeteria. And I don't know if they did it just for us, but that was the best cafeteria food I had in a long time. I mean, salmon. Which college, well, how many colleges serve salmon? I think they were just being nice to us. We spent an hour with counselors. They learned about the tools to use to gain access to financial assistance. There are things they didn't even know existed. It was just, they didn't even know how to apply. As I said, I have 18 seniors. 7 of them have applied already. 3 have been accepted. So they're pretty fired up about that. And I guess that's pretty much it. I'm sorry I didn't have any music or students or very sweet girls to talk about the program, but in 2 years, I'll be ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. I think on the heels of our last presentation last month on college and career readiness and that whole piece, I mean, this really is so well timed. So
thank you. And as Dr. Ryan said, the Women in Construction function, 100 high school girls from all over the community came in. They got to work with the operators union. They got to work with the iron workers. They got to work with Barton Mallow. They got a goodie bag where they probably had $200 of tools and cool swag in there. It was really really a nice situation. Adam Kern, thanks for help setting everything up because he had to do a lot of organizing. My job was to get my students out of the way.
I do have a question for you. As a comment you made, you said, they don't see it as math, as fractions, they see it as measurements. Do they really see it maybe as a continuation of what they're doing here? Because I know the math you teach, you've kind of changed it a little bit to really fit, the program. So did they just see it as like, oh, I'm doing this already? So they saw it as
There's
more
a
attainable?
correlation. It's like a square of shingles is 10 feet by 10 feet. So 100 square feet, they got to figure the area.
Yeah.
But when it's on a piece of paper and you don't know why you're doing it, you don't know why you're doing it, but now they're getting it. And it's fabulous to see them change their mind. I have another student I give home or give a ride home, every other day. And he's like, hey, what are you going to do with yourself? He says, well, I was going to go on the field, but and he was the one who said, college. I can do college. All you got to do is not quit. Because up at Northern, they're like, you're not going to quit because we're going to be on you. And if I'm not on you, we're going to call your teacher, and then he's going to get on you. So it's just the way it is. And as long as we can build any of the construction teachers in the state, we're not competing against each other. We're competing against the kids not wanting to do anything and motivating them to get going. Because I'm 58 and I'm going to be 88 soon, and I want to have a nice, well-built old person's home. I want some really cool shuffleboard lanes in there, putting green. So, anyways, it's our job and it's what we do, and we love it.
And you have to really recognize not only the work of Steve Whitecoff over the last 5 years, him, the team, Adam Kern, principal of the junior high, who's sitting in the audience. You wave, please. See where he's at. They've literally built it where they start the kids building the stool that they're going to sit on in class, and now they're to the level they're going to be building houses. They built a small one out back of the junior high, and now they're going to be expanding it, and just the sky's the limit. So I really appreciate all that you guys have done to kind of build the program that's going to help build the future of Clarkston.
Thank you for all the support.
Thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. Our next presentation, item 5.3, is our elementary math and literacy update. Welcome, Mrs. Mahoney. And team.
Good evening, Board of Education. Dr. Ryan, very excited to be here to celebrate elementary literacy and mathematics tonight. I am standing here with two wonderful leaders that I would like to introduce who will be speaking as well. Our elementary literacy coordinator. She's the subject area coordinator at the elementary leading literacy, and that is Megan Burkett-Brazier. Alongside another wonderful leader is our elementary math coordinator, Rachel Raditz. And we're excited to share the work we've been doing to lift up literacy and math for our elementary division. One of the goals in our strategic plan is to increase student academic and dispositional skills. And this certainly starts at the elementary level. Our Board of Education, you, have been incredibly responsive to the needs of our youngest learners by approving the system of support model that we have put in place. We have spent the last year and a half in a pandemic, and this, of course, has impacted our world, our state, our community, and our students. But the system of support is going to help our needs and increase literacy and math achievement for our children. And so tonight we want to share with you our model, what we're doing, and what we continue to believe in as it guides us through this support model. And I love these pictures of our children in action when it comes to literacy and math. And we believe that joyful, engaging practices develop a strong foundation to enrich students' lives now and in the future. Recognizing that all children are different and that we must be responsive to this in our instruction. So developing a strong foundation requires high-quality instruction, to be adaptive, to appropriately challenge every child, to be responsive to data. And learning must be joyful. This comes in twofold. We build this through successful experiences. When children are feeling success, we know this motivates their learning, as well as we connect to students' interests and passions, and this is what we remain committed to. I'd like to hand the microphone now to Megan.
So when we think about early literacy and math, we know that these skills truly are foundational for life. And we work hard to build those skills strategically in young 5s through 5th grade. We know that literacy skills, reading, writing, speaking, listening, communicating, these are skills that cut across all subjects and into the fabric of our daily lives. As we build literacy skills in our students, we know this is an opportunity to connect with our learners and help them find their voice and build agency in their learning. Giving students choice and voice in the topics and genres they are reading and writing about is critical. As Nancy said earlier, we want learning to be joyful and engaging. We want our students to be curious, to wonder, to try things out and try again if they don't work. We want our students to be critical thinkers and problem solvers and know that learning is both individual and social. Our instruction ensures that our students' passions and interests are honored in the classroom and indeed connected to what they're learning. For example, one of our standards, right, is that students learn how to write opinion or argument pieces. So when we teach that standard in the context of what matters to them. Our students have written about things that matter to them a lot, like having bigger lockers, right, in elementary school. That's a big deal for kids. Different food in the cafeteria, and even things like more sidewalks in the community, right? These are things that our students want, and they can develop a claim and provide reasons and evidence for that. And when our learning becomes personalized, our engagement is stronger, and the joy is there both in their success and in their connection to school. We also know that we have to be responsive to the very wide range of needs in our classrooms and make sure that we have materials and strategies to challenge and grow every child's literacy knowledge. One-on-one conferring and small group work is a focus for us as we work hard to make sure that the materials and concepts we present are tailored to the needs of our students. Along with this, we know that there are skills that our young learners need to be explicitly taught. We can't leave these up to chance. This explicit instruction might just take a few exposures for some students and many more for others. You know, as we kind of think about the impact of the last year and a half, we know that the needs of our students have changed, and we feel proud to be in a district that continues to be dedicated to responding to these needs. And now I'm going to let Rachel talk a little bit about math.
Good evening. When thinking about elementary students and their lives as mathematicians, we want them to see and experience math around them. It's everywhere. Whether they're using their imaginations during play, like if they're playing store, counting or sorting toys, building with blocks, playing games with their family or friends, students are utilizing their math skills. Our students are excited to share their mathematical thinking, and this is a purposeful move in our mathematics instruction. We communicate about math, sharing ideas using manipulatives, drawings, words, and numbers. We also expand our own understanding by listening carefully to the thinking of others. Within the classroom, building conceptual knowledge is paramount. Students use manipulatives such as tiles, pattern blocks, 5 and 10 frames to provide tangible aids to help build understanding. By physically moving the pieces, students are able to fully interact with the mathematics. Over time, students begin to draw pictorial representations of their math thinking. These are drawings that explain their understanding. And finally, the mathematical thinking can be shown through numbers and symbols. As Megan just stated, we must be responsive to the wide range of needs in our classrooms. Some students will readily move from the concrete manipulatives to drawings to our number system, while others will need additional experiences. Building conceptual understanding provides for multiple entry points. This means that there are many ways for a student to begin to solve a problem. And in fact, there may be several ways a student could solve the problem. Without the limitation of just one right way to answer a mathematics problem, students are flexible and able to engage in multiple ways.
So tonight we wanted to share some data with you. As you can see here, this is K-5 math data. This is based on this fall currently, 2021. We have a brand new screener that we purchased and have implemented called FastBridge. And so what you're seeing here is that 69% of our students are likely to meet end of the year benchmarks, while 31% of the students in the district are indicating some or high levels of risk for meeting these benchmarks. We are being responsive to data. So you will see not only in this slide, but in the next slides, a snapshot of our current data for our elementary division. We also wanted to show this math piece. This is by grade level across the district. And one thing I'd like to remind you is that these are national benchmarks that were set before the pandemic. And so our students took it this fall, and this is the way they've turned out. As you can see, it's interesting, and we have questions around the data, like look at third grade. And so we're wondering about their success being stronger. And so as we continue to look at data and ask more questions, it continues to guide us. Same thing with FastBridge for literacy. This is showing 62% of our students are likely to meet the end of the year benchmark, while 38% of the students in the district are indicating some or high level of risk for meeting benchmarks. And as we look again at grade level data, the national benchmark was set before the pandemic, but again, we see stronger in third as well as fourth grade there. We did want to reflect and share M-STEP data. This was taken in the spring of this last school year. And again, this is for third through fifth grade. And so you'll see, yes, we want our percentages certainly to go up. 53% proficient. While at the state, this is for ELA, was 44%. So we were well above our state. And as well as math, 45%, where the state average there was 36%. Our system of support is really made up of 3 roles, and I wanted to define those roles for you. And so the idea, and we know that we had literacy coaches, but we are super excited that we now have math coaches serving our teachers. Our coaches work alongside classroom teachers to ensure outstanding core instruction that supports and appropriately challenges all our learners. This is speaking to the differentiation that has to occur within our classrooms. Our interventionists, again, super excited. These are our certified teachers that are serving our students. They use data to design, deliver, and monitor progress of targeted interventions for small groups of students in literacy and math. And we're very fortunate to have our aides. Our aides continue to guide our students, and they are guided by our coaches and interventionists. They support small groups of students with targeted instruction. Megan will talk more now about coaches.
So if you take a look at the pictures on the screen, you'll see our coaches meeting with building administrators, meeting with teams of teachers. They're collaborating, planning, using data to create and revise plans. And this is the heart of coaching work. Our coaches are continuously using data to support instruction inside the classroom for all of our students. They help make instructional decisions for whole groups, small groups, and individual students. They're modeling lessons in classrooms, recommending strategies to support small groups, helping to differentiate lessons, and using the data to design and lead professional learning for staff. In literacy, we launched the year with a focus on word study instruction. Our literacy coaches have led sessions around decoding, phonological awareness development, and more effective phonics instruction, making sure that our students are understanding and applying those letter-sound relationships when they're reading and writing. Our math coaches launched the year by leading instruction around using our online resources to support instruction, increasing engagement in math, and supporting math development with games, protocols, and questioning techniques. The best part is this isn't a one-time professional learning. Our coaches are on site to deliver and work with educators around these topics all year long. And we have a lot of new teachers. We have a lot of new staff in Clarkson. We have over 40 new staff members in our elementary buildings. And it's been amazing to see the work and the impact that our coaches are already making with those new staff. It's been an incredible gift to hear from teachers who've come from other districts, and those teachers have said to us, we've never felt more supported. And that's amazing when we hear that in this time that's very difficult for our teachers, and we know that. So our coaches are leading just amazing work. And in addition to working alongside teachers, they're also engaging in their own deep professional learning so that they can continue to support teachers and students with the most up-to-date research. So math coaches are currently immersed in math recovery training, and our literacy coaches in statewide training around the literacy essentials. And in the next couple of months, our new literacy coaches, as well as all of our literacy interventionists, will begin a comprehensive Orton Gillingham training. So I'm gonna let Rachel talk a little bit about what our interventionists have been up to.
With the approval of the certified teachers as literacy and math interventionists earlier this year, Clarkson has brought a new level of support to our elementary students in need of small group instruction outside of the classroom. Together with coaches and aides, our interventionists carefully analyzed several points of data, including our FastBridge screener, classroom assessments, and observations. The data not only determined which students would be in these small groups, but which learning goals we would target. When examining all of this very recent data, groups are flexible and responsive. And this means that group members may change. And already this year, in a very short amount of time, students have been saddened when they aren't in these groups anymore. They have gained the skills needed, and when they aren't pulled anymore, they're expressing to the interventionist, like, why can't I go with you? Can't I go still? It's very exciting that they feel that success, and they want to continue. In this picture, you can see 3 of our interventionists leading lessons. Our interventionists are currently using a variety of resources, such as Hegarty, enhanced alphabet knowledge, and differentiated phonics instruction for literacy interventions. The Bridges Intervention Program is used during math interventions, and the math interventionists are currently attending professional learning in anticipation of using math recovery with our students as well. Plans utilizing these programs are created and adjusted as needed with careful reflection on the learning evidence produced by every child. The small groups are engaging and supportive environments where our literacy and math interventionists are experts in building positive experiences for students in order to increase their skills and their confidence. We also want to share with you information about our aides. Our literacy and math aides remain an important part of our support model. The aides assist with data collection at the school and classroom level. The data is then used by the coaches, the interventionists, and the aides to determine the next steps for small groups. Co-planning with our interventionists is integral in this new system of supports, and the whole team benefits from the collaboration. Whether supporting inside of the classroom or leading a small group outside of the classroom, our aides give students immediate feedback and provide learning opportunities. And Mrs. Mahoney will continue.
And we end this presentation just looking towards the future. And again, we just remain very grateful and very excited in terms of next steps. And so as we focus in on the foundational skills that we're thriving to instill in our students, to increase student academic and dispositional skills for their knowledge, their curiosity, and to be confident learners, to build agency for their future, and they can hold on to and guide their own pathway, and to develop collaborative skills that we believe is a life skill for their future that is highly necessary. We continue to look at the supports to empower staff to use not only best practices, but effective practices, to analyze data to make informed decisions, to deliver targeted instruction to support small groups, and to extend our programming opportunities. The system of support we are building for our elementary students in Clarkston is absolutely incredible. And as we look towards the future, we believe this model will make a difference for our students and set them up for greater success in all of their school years and beyond. It's imperative that our students develop the foundational skills around reading, writing, and math, and the dispositions necessary to confidently pursue the future pathway of their own choosing. We also want our students to leave Clarkston Community Schools being clear and confident communicators that have strong collaboration skills and to value the thinking and the perspectives of others. The supports that we have in place with our coaches, our interventionists, and our aides at the elementary level are going to help ensure that this does happen. We are also looking into extended program opportunities for summer and after school. We're excited about the present and even more excited about the future and what this means for the children in Clarkston. We look forward to coming back. We want to update you on our progress in the coming months with data and the programs that we're putting in place for the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahoney. Trustees? Oh, thank you. Trustees, what questions or comments do you have for Mrs. Mahoney and her expert team? Mrs. Egan.
I'm just curious, when I look at this data, and thank you for the data, do we know how our kids were, how those bar charts might have looked, say, 2 or 3 years ago, pre-COVID? How much lower of the success, or how much more kids are at risk, do we think, than what we had? Do we have any idea?
And we can compare, but the FastBridge screener is new, and so we wouldn't be comparing complete, data. Yes, there's been a drop. There has. I don't have those numbers off, but we could pull them from Wendy. But we wanted to start this year with the FastBridge and then continue to build from there.
Yeah. But thank you for doing this. I appreciate looking at the data, and I am very appreciative of the fact that we have the resources that we can put in to, address those kids that have perhaps, just couldn't quite push through some of the virtual learning. And my experience being in other school districts has been this past couple of months since school has started, is seeing how socially behind the kids are, that the teachers have their hands full. I mean, the teachers are going through, you know, getting over their own social isolation and some of their own issues with their families. Maybe someone has been sick or whatever. But it's very interesting to hear from some teachers who have been really struggling with, if they're teaching 7th grade, the last time these kids were really face-to-face full-time were as 5th graders. And there's a big change that happens socially and emotionally from 5th to 7th grade. So I'm actually, I feel very optimistic that the numbers are not so bad, actually, and that we can address this.
I would agree, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Madam President.
Mrs. McGinnis.
I'm curious, am I correct to assume that our coaches are being pushed into the classrooms?
Coaches are being into the classroom, yes. They model, they join PLCs, they will be pulling teachers for data conversations, yes.
I'm also going to be curious in the future, as the data continues to build, as to what kind of successful progress this FastBridge tool gives us versus our other tools. I think in the business that we're in, some of these tools are getting better and better each time we move to the next session one. So I'm looking forward to see that our students' academic progress increases at a higher speed with the newer tools, because I think each time we've changed, we've learned just that much more about what their needs are.
For sure.
And I think that this model too, this top-down model is also going to be very successful in application to the tool. And so I'm really curious as we move forward how much our data shows the trend growing greater, faster.
Yes, and the FastBridge is a screener. It is a snapshot. And we took the bottom 30% and took a deeper dive in terms of, you know, what is actually happening around literacy and math. We have other pieces of data as well that we would like to share in the future in terms of our own local assessments that we can provide and compare as well.
I do have one question. How would you say maybe the teachers are feeling now that they have this extra support, I think primarily for maybe those students who are struggling, and they have these extra layers, and so now you have these kids who aren't at risk, right, who may be ready for additional challenge. I mean, do those teachers feel maybe a little more equipped or have a little more time maybe to focus some attention there? I mean, you mentioned differentiation, that the coaches are able to work with teachers a little more on differentiation. So is there a little more sense that they have a little more time to do that now in the classroom, now that they have sort of that support on the back end for students who are struggling?
Yeah, that's one of the ways that our coaches are really supporting our classroom teachers, is that they can help with differentiation for all levels of students, right? So when we, for example, in math, take a look at a pre-test, we're able to not only look and see which students might be pulled for intervention in order to give more support for certain standards, but we also look at the students who are scoring well on that, and we think about how we can, enhance their experience and bump up their learning as well. And so coaches have had a really strong hand in that and able to support all across the differentiation spectrum, not just looking at some of our students that might need more additional support.
Great. I just remember back in the spring, we talked about differentiation being a focus of professional development. So
yes, and having a literacy coach and a math coach in a building where they're right there and they're able to ask a question and get an answer very quickly is an amazing, amazing thing as a classroom teacher.
Excellent.
Coming from my own experience.
Good.
So just as a couple final words on it, what I heard from conversation, I really appreciate the questions and the presentation tonight. If you look at how we brought this all online this fall, it's really a going work in progress. It's going to take time for interventionists and coaches to kind of fully get up to speed in terms of their roles, the training to be able to address and work with our teachers to meet the needs. And I want to remind everyone, my observations this year is the academic, although there was some slide through COVID, right now, I think our primary focus in listening to our teachers, as I had an opportunity to visit and be with the staff of every building over the last week and a half, is really the message has been to me, and what you had said is making sure that our students are back on the rails when it comes to their, I'm gonna call it their age-appropriate lanes that they come into school. Part of it might be social emotional, but I think it's a bigger thing of a freezing in time that happened 2 years ago. We're really fighting really hard and look to our teachers that are here this evening and everything they're doing to try to make it happen when it comes to making our students kind of make that jump, you know, to be true 5th graders, to be true 8th graders, to feel that way onto their senior in high school maybe. And it's a challenge right now. And I think this part of the academic piece is incredibly important, as everybody who's been at our meetings for the last several have seen that we're really broad in that whole child perspective, but the academics is a priority within that. So, you know, looking at that whole ball of wax, that whole child, the whole piece of our mission within the school district, you know, this is going to be a critical movement now in the data we look at. And it's great that when we talk about systems of support too, that's not just, you know, some sort of abstract concept. You know, we're identifying kids who need it and then getting them the supports or the acceleration that they need. But I really think this is a proposition that's going to be easily 3 to 5 years in the future before we fully actualize and can appreciate the full power of it, what we can bring to our school district. And I think along that way, we're going to need to see and be able to present that case to our community with progressive data of our achievements within these different areas. I just want our board and our community to be prepared that, you know, it's something that we need to support for at least, again, 3 to 5 years to fully actualize it. And then I think we need to course adjust and continue to look at what those best screeners are, what best practices, and how we can support our classroom teachers each and every day. So I want to thank you guys for the presentation. Very well done, and more to come. We're going to be doing updates throughout this year on our progress in the core areas.
Thank you.
And just by way of context, Dr. Ryan, I think you mentioned kind of getting this up and running this year. I mean, this has been multiple years that, you know, this year we just got some additional pieces up and running, really. And I think exactly what you said, we're going to take some time to see the real gains in what we're doing, but we're going to course correct along the way too, right? That's what's so exciting about having data to look at, to see, all right, and we are where we are because, you know, we started with literacy coaches and social workers and some other components, and we saw gains, right? It was working. We were getting where we wanted to go, and so we said, all right, we need to do math coaches, and we need to have more supports, and we need to work together with interventionists. Just like we used technology integrationalists to promote, you know, technology growth. So I really like the flexibility that we have as we go forward. I mean, this isn't like this is what we're doing and we're sticking with it. It's like, all right, we're using this, we're looking at the data, we're adapting. You know, how we're using coaches is completely flexible. And in education, we tend to go in trends. I mean, there was a period of time where it was like if you weren't in the classroom, you weren't load bearing. You know, was the terminology at the time. You know, you were extra and it wasn't useful at the time. And this doesn't make any sense. You know, I mean, I think the model we're looking at, you know, when you mentioned 40 new elementary teachers, I mean, we have 70 some total new teachers this year. How is it possible that a new teacher knows everything they need to know on day one? I mean, we get some great new teachers here. But I mean, you just don't have the experience. Right? I mean, you two have a lot of experience, right? But you probably haven't seen everything, right? And that's where
putting words
having these, you know, additional folks, that's really that team approach. And I'm so thankful that we're able to do this, and I'm so thankful that we're going to continue to do more and adapt and work together and continue to have these conversations. And as a board, I would say, like, I feel like we've seen this, but like every time we look at this, it's like a slightly new wrinkle. And I so much appreciate that and so much want that to continue because I want to be fully engaged as our part of the team, you know, to say this is what we're all about and this is where we're going. So I really appreciated your summary, and I wanted to put a little longer term context to it because it is, you know, it's not like we're there. And, you know, we're going to get there. It's very much a all hands on deck, full team effort. And that's what our kids need because nobody says everybody's where they need to be, right? I mean, there isn't probably one kid that has everything they possibly need anywhere, let alone here. And so that's why we're going to continue to work at it and do best job we possibly can, and I very, very much appreciate the dedication and partnership of all of our administration, but ultimately the teachers that are on the front lines, working with kids, dealing with their challenges, what they bring to school from elsewhere. I wish we could spend more time in classrooms, but we haven't been able to lately. But that's that's the front lines, and I very much appreciate the fact that we prioritize that so much, and we're using data to evaluate the effectiveness of our approach. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. As we move on to 5.4, our equity and inclusion update, where is Mr. Vickers, who had signed up to speak? Okay. I'm sorry, I did not mean to overlook you before. Was it your hope that you would speak at this item, or did you want to wait till item 9? Because I feel like I could go either way. It doesn't matter. I mean, it fits really with this topic as well. I just didn't mean to overlook you before, and I sort of sat here and thought about it, and I thought, if you like, I can certainly add you in now when everyone else speaks here, but if you want to wait till item 9, that's fine. Okay. I just didn't want you to think I overlooked you or forgot about you, so okay. Item 9, very good. So we have Mr. Lucido and Mrs. Puzio. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Good evening. We'd like to thank you for this opportunity to share our important work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Tonight, John and I are going to be sharing where we've been, where we're going, and some of the things that we're doing currently. When we look at our mission statement, we have highlighted students, staff, and families. And this is the heart of our work for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we want all of our students to be challenged, healthy, engaged, safe, and supported. And this is the heart of what we want to do here. When we think about the purpose of diversity, equity, and inclusion here in Clarkston, we want to ensure that our schools are safe, equitable, and inclusive in learning environments for all. And we want to ensure that all voices are heard and valued, that every individual feels a sense of belonging and is ready to learn. And that cannot happen unless everything else happens before that. So when we look at our why for this work, first, when we look at whole child development, it's part of our mission statement. It is the shared responsibility for students, parents and family, school and community. We also recognize that all students can learn when given the necessary supports and the opportunities to do so. We have high expectations for how we treat others, as well as how we engage in learning, and we know that this promotes academic success for all. We do have changing demographics in our community. There are interpersonal challenges that do distract from education. Sometimes that might be between staff members, sometimes that's between students. And that might be in situations of bullying that might be based on race, ability, sexual orientation. And this is something that we need to address. We expect exemplary education for students, and we know that this is true when we have professional growth of staff and we have continuous school improvement. And we also recognize that education promotes a healthy sense of self and encourages personal achievement. So when we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, we recognize that it's not exclusively about race. It is about race, but it's also about socioeconomic status. It's about sexual orientation. It's about gender identities. It's about learning abilities. And we recognize that we need to have trust and respect no matter what. We honor and uplift the unique identities, voices, perspectives, and stories of our students to create a sense of belonging and well-being for all. In doing this, we have the opportunity to offer windows into the experiences of others, where we can look out and see the experiences of others. And we can have mirrors for our students to see themselves reflected in the classroom. We recognize that empathy is something that is taught, where we honor and cherish the humanity of every person. The definitions that Clarkston uses for diversity, equity, and inclusion may be a little bit different from what is seen in other places, but this is what we look at in Clarkston. For diversity, it is the practice of intentionally creating meaningful opportunities for personal connections that foster, value, and respect our similarities and differences. When we look at equity, it is an imperative process of removing barriers to ensure access for all and matching district resources with student academic needs. You heard in our previous presentation about the systems of supports, and this is equity. And to us, inclusion is intentionally ensuring that all voices are heard and valued. So we'd like to take a step back of what is some of the work that we have done starting in 2015. Now, we do recognize that diversity work, though, is not new, and it's not just from 2015. Over 20 years ago, there was a diversity committee under the leadership of Dr. L. Roberts, and that is where a respect code was written. Today, as we move forward and we look at from what we did in 2015 to now, we recognize that we've reinstated more of a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we have thoughtfully engaged in various learning opportunities, some that might be slower than others. Some of the learning has been for key identified personnel, while a few have included all of our staff. I'm not going to read all of this. There's a lot on the screen, but there's a lot of detail intentionally. One of the things I'd like to lift up is the social justice cohort work that we did starting in fall of 2015. So we had 2 different cohorts go through 2 different years. And some of that work was to be able to understand and where our students are and the different needs that they have. 2 things that came out of that work. One was a fishbowl with students, and we had high school students who engaged in a fishbowl, and they, again, represented a lot of different identities, race, learning abilities, socioeconomic status. And they talked to us about some of the things that they experience as high school students. Later on that spring, our high school staff then watched a video of that. And they had the opportunity to hear from their students that they have in their classrooms at that time, talk about some of the concerns that they have. And teachers had the opportunity to then think about what are some things that they could do to think through that. We also, in 2018, started some of our work on trauma-informed learning. We understand through this learning that what happens to the body and brain when there's trauma does have an impact on learning. And so we have to learn, how do we respond? And for us, it's about recognizing and understanding the power of strong and connecting relationships that it has for a child to help them in their learning. When we look at page 2, you'll see again some more trauma-informed learning. You also see Anti-Racist Leadership Institute, where 2 of us participated in that. And it's important for us to do that work because it gives us the opportunity to understand, how do we address bias and bigotry in the moment? How do we recognize it, and how do we respond to it? You'll also see a couple of times about culturally responsive teaching. Now, I would like to say, unfortunately, it has the same initials of critical race theory, CRT. These are not the same thing. So culturally responsive teaching is about having inclusive classroom practices that allows us to understand the learning styles of students and the needs of our diverse learners, and then provide opportunities so that all may engage in learning. You heard Mrs. Mahoney say responsive in our instruction. This is what culturally responsive teaching is all about. This year, we have started culturally responsive leadership work with our ad staff. When we look at the dignity of individuals is not guaranteed unless the dignity of their cultures is affirmed and preserved, this is something that we're learning to understand as administrators. And how do we do this? What does this look like? What does it sound like? And what can we put into place to ensure this? We've also started restorative practices for our secondary buildings where we have administrators, counselors, social workers, and key teacher leaders who are practicing in this. And the importance of this work is that it's about building healthy relationships. It's helping to address the needs of school community. It's about resolving conflict, repairing harm, and restoring positive relationships. And it's helping to reduce, prevent, and improve harmful behavior. And these are just a few of the things that we have done from 2015 up to this point, and we will move forward. And so at this point, I'd like to move it to John Lucido.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion moving forward at Clarkston Community Schools. So for the 2021-2022 school year, we have created a steering committee. And this committee is going to guide our work going forward. We plan on meeting on a regular basis, but the members have been appointed based on their previous experience and work in diversity and equity and inclusion. The committee is going to consist of administrators, teacher leaders, a board member, and parents and community members. We're going to actively participate in learning opportunities to grow our understanding and capacity for work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're going to align our diversity, equity, and inclusion work to our strategic plan, and then we're going to meet to evaluate and reflect on work and continue to move it forward. Now, our focus of the work here in Clarkston around diversity, equity, and inclusion is for students and staff to be able to affirmatively answer yes to these 4 questions. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Will you treat me fairly? Will you protect me? From a district level engagement, we are going to continue to provide learning for staff that gives them tools to ensure all students feel safe and ready to learn. Our multi-tiered systems of support, that is the process of looking at data and what's working and what's not. We've implemented a new streamlined process in this area that allows for teams of teachers and staff to examine data that will help inform them for next steps of students, whether that is to advance students with additional rigor or provide additional supports for students who are struggling. As we talked about the structures of support that we've put in place, we have interventionist coaches in the area of math, literacy, social emotional learning, and we now have an adequate number of staff to teach to the needs of our students. Studies have shown that students of color achieve greater academic success when they have at least one teacher of color during their academic career. Because of this data, we're going to be mindful of our hiring process in an attempt to diversify our staff. We're going to continue to work on the formation and facilitation of committees, interactions with our community groups, and dialogue with students, staff, administrators, and community members who want all students to succeed. For school level engagement, we're going to provide professional learning to our teaching staff in the area of culturally responsive teaching, social emotional learning, trauma-informed education, restorative practices, and our multi-tiered systems of support. For the culturally responsive teaching, we are going to provide our teachers with education on different cultures so that they can have a greater understanding of the culture of the students in their classroom and create an inclusive environment. For social emotional learning, we're going to try and build the skills, knowledge, and attitudes in our students to have them effectively manage emotions, reach their goals, show empathy for others, form supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. Trauma-informed, we are going to give our teachers the tools to be able to recognize and respond to the impact of traumatic stress that some of their students may be facing. As Stacy mentioned with restorative practices, it's building healthy relationships that address the needs of the school community, resolve conflict, repair harm, and restore positive relationships, and reduce harmful behaviors. And then multi-tiered systems of support. It's a comprehensive framework comprised of research-based strategies designed to meet the individual needs and assets of the whole child at all achievement levels. Additional school-level engagement. We are going to be creating classroom and building safe spots for students to take a break for regulation and connection. The use of restorative circles for staff meetings, discipline follow-up, classroom management, and relationship building. We're also going to be supporting the creation of student clubs that will create safe places for students and provide opportunities for them to have a voice and grow their leadership skills. We're going to be honoring, recognizing, and celebrating Clarkson's diverse cultures and backgrounds. For classroom level engagement, we're going to be soliciting feedback from students through surveys to adjust curriculum design, access, and resources. Culturally responsive teaching, this is where we're going to be using prior knowledge as an on-ramp for curriculum awareness of other cultures, and we will be celebrating and advocating those differences. We're going to nurture student voice through academic service learning projects, student-led morning announcement, and book clubs and novels at the various grade levels. Socialization, as Stacy mentioned, the Respect Code, that was created several years ago in collaboration with student, staff, and administration. And basically what that Respect Code was, it is a set expectations on how we treat each other with civility and respect in our school community. Some of the work that we plan to do is revamp that with the input of current staff, administration, and students, and redistribute that in our classrooms as it once was. We're also going to examine curriculum resources for inclusion. We're going to update our media centers with current copies of fiction and nonfiction titles that represent all people with no barriers in choice. And then for our SEL, we're going to work with the teachers to have inclusive classrooms and our administrators to create inclusive buildings. Parent and community engagement, we're going to work to build trusting and understanding relationship with parents on current and future initiatives. We'd like to get parents actively involved in our school and district level committees and hopefully have a diverse representation. Partner with community entities, faith-based businesses, our political representatives board, and our Board of Education. And what this looks like currently. As Stacy mentioned, we're currently going through culturally responsive learning with our administrative staff. This is planned throughout all of 2021, 2022. We've had 3 sessions so far. Our restorative circles learning, we did this learning earlier this year. It was with our secondary administrators, our central office administrators, and then staff, key identified staff from all of our secondary buildings. And that they've had additional training since then. We've created diversity and equity and inclusion coordinators. This is the equivalent of 1 hour release time in the elementary, and it is 1 hour of release time in our secondary. And then as we discussed, we'll be developing a cohesive MTSS process. At the school level, we are going to be supporting the creation of student clubs. Our restorative practice leads that we have identified for each of our secondary buildings will be working directly with students on discipline alternatives and creating restorative circles. Equitable participation in school sponsored events. So for this year, our homecoming, the high school, a group of students from the high school in partnership with some teachers created a homecoming closet. And that's where students had the ability to go in and go shopping and find a homecoming dress without the stresses of the finances so they could be able to attend and enjoy that event. We also created sensory rooms at the actual event for students who needed to self-regulate and take that break from the event. At Renaissance High School, we have a mentor program. This has been running for a number of years. It's in partnership with Waypoint Community Church, and it's where community members, church members, and even some of our own district staff have taken on mentoring students at Renaissance High School. And as Mrs. Mahoney and Mrs. Puzio mentioned, we have our interventionists and coaches for math, literacy, and SEL. At the classroom level, Peace Club is one of the clubs that was created at the high school. They are actually providing mentorship opportunities for Pine Knob Elementary students. They give up their lunch break at the high school, travel to Pine Knob Elementary to spend some time with some students who have chosen to be part of that project. We have academic service learning projects, morning meetings at the elementary level, and restorative circles at the secondary level. And then for the parents and community, continuing our partnership with the Parent Advisory Team, Clarkson Area Youth Assistance, Easter Seals, the Clarkston Rotary with our Shoes for Kids program, and our great relationships we have with our area churches. So at Clarkson, we want safe, equitable, inclusive learning environments for all, where all voices are heard and valued, ensure every individual feels a sense of belonging and is ready to learn. And as we said, our focus will be for every current student and staff member to be able to answer firmly yes to these 4 questions. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Will you treat me fairly? Will you protect me? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the trustees, we had 4 parents who requested to address us, or citizens, I don't want to make any assumptions, who had requested to address us on this topic tonight. So before we get to them, I wondered if you had any questions or comments or discussion for Mr. Lucido or Mrs. Puzio.
Just that I look forward to the work of this committee. Thank you.
Can't see everyone's faces here in a straight line. Good? Okay. All right. Then we will go down our list. And just as a reminder, we have 2 microphones set up here and here. And then when I call your name, if you'll approach the microphone, state your name and address, please, and you'll have 2 minutes. We'll begin with Robert Osterman.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. I've been involved in a lot of social media. Robert Osterman, 6338 Almond Lane. Walking distance to the amazing Clarkson Elementary and junior high and high school.
Thank you.
I've been involved in far too many social media conversations over the last month, and more than once I found myself saying a lot of things in support of this district and the actions of committees like the one that we just heard from. And I got really tired of typing, because I thought we better talk to you directly. We have a very diverse country, and it ain't perfect. It's a lot like me. I'm a great guy, but I'm obese, according to my doctor. I have problems. And I think the more we think about our country and the people in it, and we forget that there are problems that we can fix, the greater disservice we do to our students. I want my children to grow up understanding that our world is very, very creative, that is very, very diverse. And I want that diversity to be celebrated and not lost in our desire to push color blindness as an ideal, because that erases the experiences of those in our community who are not white Christian males. I don't know if the statistic is significant to the DEI conversation, but the median value of a white family in America is $188,000. 50% of Americans have less, 50% have more. The median value of a family, median wealth saved by a black family in America, 50%, is $24,000. The more we push colorblindness on our children, the more we rob them of the realization that we still have a long way to go with our efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion to ensure that all students in Clarkson schools and beyond have equal opportunities to succeed. As a taxpayer and a voter, I implore each member of this board to do everything possible to encourage diversity, equity, inclusion, and culturally sensitive teaching to my children. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Tim Parkin.
Tim Parkin, 9100 Michigami. Over 25 years ago, by working hard in a very competitive and at times unequitable automotive industry, I was able to move my family to Clarkson, enroll my 3 daughters in the esteemed Clarkson school system. Shortly after enrollment, I realized that our family values, which included the golden rule, hard work, that life was not fair, and that failure was necessary for success, were being undermined by the very same school district I pursued. Upon volunteering to run the Bailey Lake Elementary School annual field day, I was notified field day name would be changed to Activities Day, as field day implied track and field and ultimately competition. I was given the task to organize games with no winners or losers, as a girl had thrown a softball over 50 yards the year prior, and the staff was very concerned and wanted to protect the self-esteem of those who did not throw as far. In essence, these people had stripped my daughter's opportunity to compete, all under the guise of the Marxist equity of results, not equality of opportunity. I found much irony, but little equity in the fact that the same people asking me to conjure up a utopian game were the very same people who were getting paid from the salary I earned competing in a world of winners and losers. I suggested that the PE teacher do the job that I paid her to do and teach those that wanted to compete the proper way to throw a softball. 25 years ago, I told the staff that this socialist doctrine has not ended well for any society throughout history. So I stand here 25 years later witnessing the result that I feared. A generation that society and educators have created terms for, including cancel culture, snowflakes, microaggressions, wokeism, safe spaces, and of course, last but not least, equity. Insanity is repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. It's difficult to fix a problem you created. As a former Clarkston school parent, now grandparent, whose grandchildren attend local private schools, with your tax base in mind, I recommend Clarkston schools exit the social engineering business,
Parkin.
leave the parenting to the parents, and return to teaching the basic skills needed for
Thank you, Mr. Parkin.
We're all great things that come from competition.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you, Mr. Parkin.
Equity of results and the freedom to fail is its greatest attribute.
Thank you, Mr. Parkin. Appreciate your comments. All right, Christy Giampetroni.
Hi, Christy Giampetroni from Clarkston. I come today with wisdom, not the wisdom of man or the wisdom of intellect, of the wisdom of the heart and truth. For with the heart, one believes. I look around at the people today at this room, and I look at our members on stage, and you know what I see? I see our community, and I see my caring neighbors, not a system of racist people. I came to the school with some concerns. After reading that equitable schools are shifting our values, according to the Equity Toolkit and Bell framework given to Clarkston schools from Oakland School Services and Dr. J. Marks that was mentioned tonight, it states, equitable learning environments require a conscious shift in our values. What are these shifts? Generic vision statements and a shift to making equity and justice the center of our vision statement. Another thing it states, it says racism as an isolated situation is now going to shift our value to a systemic racism is what we want in our equitable schools. And the third thing it says is accepting white was what we believed, but now we're going to shift our values to decentering whiteness as if being white is a negative thing. And this is by Dr. Marks that was stated tonight in the DEI. When I read this, it was really disheartening, and I came to the school because I wanted to know, does our school believe in this? Surely not, but I did not get a clear answer. Clarkston, does your heart say to you that this is wrong? It should. We are not systemically racist, and you know that I know that we're not systemically racist because I was able to walk through those doors today, and I was not oppressed. I never was, and I was given the freedom tonight to come here and speak. And you know, I've always had that freedom. And of all the years I've walked down the hallways of our beautiful schools, never once was systemic racism there. You know why? Because it never was there, and it's not there today. Does racism exist?
Thank you very
Yes, but let's use the wisdom of our heart and spirit to discern.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments tonight. And finally, we have Rudy Gonzalez. All right, good evening, Mr. Gonzalez. Name and address, and you have 2 minutes, please.
Hey, y'all. My name's Rudy Gonzalez, and I live at 5411 Morgan Lake Drive. Unlike everybody else, I didn't prepare a speech tonight. I kind of found out about the meeting today, so I figured I'd take my 2 minutes to come up here and talk to you all about the experience that my child has had here at Clarkston Schools. So basically, I don't know if we're doing the right thing or not, but I think we need to keep going forward and keep pushing that, because I know it's not, at least every week my daughter comes home and says, Dad, this is what I had to deal with. This is what happened at school. This is the teacher who was standing there. This is the principal who was standing there. And this is how they did not address it, right? So regardless of what kind of training we do, we're not doing enough. And I know we're not doing enough because tonight, whenever we put our names on the list, I wrote down Rudy Gonzalez, and I know I wasn't the only person that wrote down their first and their last name, but I was addressed as Mr. Gonzalez, and other people were addressed as Mrs., right? But that's an assumption. That's a social assumption that we made, that we put on these people, right? So who knows if just that, right? If we're making assumptions about something as little as that, that shows how little we know about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Because it's not about, or what I think it's all about is just not being a bully and treating people with dignity and respect. And I think that our faculty and staff need to have an understanding of that. And when they witness an incident, they need to take some action, and they need to take action right away. And whenever something happens, the last thing I want to hear from a school administrator, from a principal, is, I know this kid, and that is not what they meant when they said that to your daughter. That's the last thing I want to hear. I want to hear, okay, I talked to them and, whatever, but I don't want to hear, I know this person, I have a relationship with them, and I know they didn't mean that. Because it doesn't matter what they meant. What matters is how it was perceived. So thank y'all for the time. I guess I didn't use it all, so y'all have a good evening.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate all your comments tonight. And just a reminder that if you do wish to address the board when we get to item 9 on any topic, this one or any other topic tonight, there is still time. You can sign up on the sheets out there. They will be collected when we get to item 9, and we still have several items of business to get to until then. We'll move on to item 6, which is our action items. Item 6.1 is approval of personnel changes. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approves personnel changes as listed on the attached sheets.
Support. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 6.2 is approval of the memo of understanding regarding additional compensation and dual modality instruction. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approves the memorandum of understanding with the Clarkson Education Association as presented.
Support.
Are there any questions or discussion from the board? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 6.3 is approval of board bylaws. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the changes to bylaws 0100 definitions and 0167.3 public participation at board meetings as presented.
Support.
And these incorporated feedback that you received from the last meeting, correct, Mrs. Egan?
Yes.
Any other questions or discussion from the board? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 6.4 is approval of the audit. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the audit for June 30th, 2021 as presented.
Support.
Mrs. Rogers, do you think we could have Mrs. Schraben from Hunger for Tinkles come up and just give a brief overview of the audit and its findings, since we have so many community members in the audience this evening before we vote?
I would like to introduce Adrienne Traben. She is the lead partner on our audit, and they came out in September and completed an audit of the district. So I'll let her just give a high-level report of the findings.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mrs. Rogers. I did give a presentation at 6:30 in more detail, so I'll keep my comments very brief tonight. As Mrs. Rogers indicated, I did go out to the district the second week of September, and we did an audit of both the financial audit and the federal compliance audit. The district did receive an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion that we as auditors can give. So that's like a grade of an A. We also go in and determine if there are any findings of the internal control system, and we had no findings. There's two different types of findings, material weakness or significant deficiency, and there were no findings noted. And then we also try to identify if there are material adjustments that are needed to get the books in line with where they should be. And the district had no material adjustments as well. So all in all, a great audit. The district did add to the fund balance, excuse me here, about $3.8 million to get to a fund balance percentage of 14.29% of the district's 21-22 budgeted expenditures. And a lot of that money, about $4.6 million of the revenue this year was related to the CARES Act funding, which we did significantly audit and look at what was spent on those funds, using those funds. So all in all, a great audit. Thank you to Mrs. Rogers and the business office for their preparedness and their dedication to audit quality in the district.
Thank you very much. Board, trustees, any questions or comments?
I'd like to make a comment, President Horst.
Please.
I'd just like to commend Mary Beth Rogers for the work that she's done over the years in the district. With myself, with 20 years experience in accounting, I know the work is because of the control audits you have in place. And without those, and the work that the staff does to keep those control audits on target as to what their intent is, really makes a big difference when it comes to the end of this audit. And I just think that the consistency year after year after year of the work that you've done for this district is definitely something that we appreciate, and I want you to know that.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion on the table to approve the audit. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 6.5 is approval of the resolution to authorize the issuance and delegate sale of the 2022 refunding bonds. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the resolution authorizing the issuance and delegating the sale of CCS 2022 refunding bonds per the attached sheets.
Support.
Great.
Clarkston has the opportunity to do some refunding early next year to increase our bonding capacity and also save the taxpayers money. I'd like to introduce R.J. Naughton and his assistant Kristen from PFM. They're our financial advisors, and he can go over this opportunity.
Thank you, Mary Beth. It's a pleasure to be here. As Mary Beth had mentioned, there's a refinancing opportunity for the district. And I'd like to briefly go over some of the slides that, that cover that. Christine, would you like to review the existing debt?
So we're going to take a quick review of the debt that the district has. There are 7 issues altogether. 2 of them are school building and site bonds for the purposes of improving the schools. The other 5 of them are refunding bonds, which are, the purpose was to lower the debt service on previously existing bonds. So the 2 issues that we're looking at refunding this time are the 2016 refunding bonds and the 2016 school building and site bonds. If you take a look at that final column there for the total debt service, that's the amount that the school district currently owes on those 7 bonds. The payments are made by a debt levy that the school district levies on the district, and that's largely calculated by the taxable value, which RJ is going to talk to you more about.
Thank you. And so here's the taxable value growth history of the district. It's been growing at a good pace, 4% the last couple, over 4% the last couple of years, and 5% the previous year, and 4% back in 2017. So I think that's very interesting information, the good, healthy growth of the district, and that's an important factor of the of the millage that the district levies to repay the debt. And the district's participating in the School Bond Loan Fund program at 7 mills. This is the millage projection before the refinancing, proposed refinancing. And on the left side, we have the projected growth of the taxable value. And to the right of that, we have the School Bond Loan Fund activity. The district has a loan with the state of Michigan that's similar like what other districts have when they're participating in the School Bond Loan Fund, levying a millage of 7 mills or more. And that's because the district is not receiving enough debt levy tax receipts to make the bond payments and is borrowing the difference needed to cover the bond payments from the state, and has an ongoing loan with the state at a variable rate of interest. On the before schedule, it's projected that I'm going to look at my copy here. The loan is projected to be repaid in 2029. And next, we have the proposed refinancing of 2 different bonds. One is the 2016 refunding bonds, which have a first call date of May 1, 2025. And call dates are approximately 10 years after the bonds had originally been issued, which means maturities 2026 and beyond could be called in when the bonds are refinanced. And those maturities have a coupon rate of 5%. This, on the left side, we have the estimated bond payments for the refunding bonds. And to the right of that, we have the bond payments being replaced. And the estimated savings on this portion of the refinancing at current market rates, $721,921, which is a present value of $727,529. As a percentage of refunded principal, that's 3.85%. So that's one of the bonds to be refinanced. The next one is the larger, the 2016 school building and site bonds. And on the left, we have the projected bond payments at current market rates that are associated with this portion of the refinancing. And on the right side, we have the bond payments being replaced. And the estimated savings, $3,897,690. Present value savings, $3,535,383. Which as a present value savings, as a percentage of refunded principal, 10.04%. Combined, the savings are estimated at $4,619,611. And the district's projected to be repaying the School Bond Loan Fund 4 years sooner based on the existing debt after the refinancing. And there's some School Bond Loan Fund issuance or interest cost savings because the district will be repaying the School Bond Loan Fund at a faster pace due to the refinancing, estimated at $247,305, for a combined savings of $4,886,916. The present value savings, $4,262,912, which as a percentage of refunded principal, 7.87%. So that's a good level of savings, and that's based on current market rates. The interest rates wouldn't be set on the new refunding bonds until the day of pricing, which is expected to occur in January or February. The resolution before the board is to allow the district to proceed with this refinancing, and as long as the minimum level of savings are met, then the district is okay to approve the terms of that bond pricing. And one of the parameters is that the present value savings as a percentage of refunded principal is not less than 2.5%. These bonds are taxable because the refinancing occurs more than 90 days before the call date of the bonds being refinanced. And the interest rates are set on the day of pricing, but they're set as a basis over treasuries, whatever the treasury yields are on that day, and also based on the demand for those maturities. And this chart just shows how volatile the treasury notes have been the past couple years. So we hope the taxable rates continue to be low and that there are sufficient savings for the district. And we'll be able to report back the results after the bond pricing. If I didn't mention already, the underwriter is the same underwriter that you'd been using, Huntington Securities. Mary Beth?
So just to reiterate, this does not save Clarkson Schools District any revenue, but for our local taxpayers, by the actions of the board tonight, can you please repeat the total amount that can be saved to our taxpayers?
Sure. The estimated amount of savings is $4,619,611 plus the school bond loan fund estimated interest cost avoidance $247,305 for estimated savings $4,866,916.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Naughton? I like the number.
Okay.
And am I correct, RJ, too, as shortens our debt by 5 years approximately also?
Your stay in the school bond loan fund approximately 4 years.
4 years.
So we're well ahead. I mean, right now that's like a 2035 deadline for us to get out of that. And we're already ahead of that, right? So now we're going to be even farther ahead.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Mrs. McLean, we need a roll call vote for this, please, as it's a resolution.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. The motion carries.
You're welcome.
All right, Mrs. Rogers, you're up next. We'll move on to report items. 7.1 is our monthly finance report.
Tonight, I'm presenting the September 30th financial update. And real quick, the budget to actual okay, there we go. Whoops. There you go. The budget to actual revenues is just over 7%, with the majority of that from our summer tax collection, so our local revenue. You'll start seeing the state and federal revenue probably a little bit in our October, and then more as we get into the year, because we can't start asking for reimbursement for state and federal until October, because the state and federal time calendar year is October 1st, where ours is July 1st. The budget to actual expenditures is 13.74%. And our September 30th fund equity at this point is $9.1 million. And as you heard, our audited fund equity is about $14.49 million. So you were presented with all the September check registers and data. So does anybody have any questions about anything that happened the month of September?
Any questions for Mrs. Rogers on the September financial update? Okay. You want to continue then with the COVID funding?
Yes. As part of the financial update this month, we're also going to go over all the streams of COVID funding, where we're at with COVID, what we did the last year and a half on COVID funding, where we're expecting to do this year, and then we will be carrying some of it over at this point to 2022-23. So 2020-21 COVID funding, that would have been last school year. That's all been audited at this point. So and what we ended up spending it on is ESSER. Our first amount was ESSER 1 funding, which was $178,000, and that was spent on 2 North Sashabat elementary teachers and Pine Knob instructional aides. It's pretty much to lower class sizes. The Michigan COVID relief funding was $2.996294, another stream of funding. And you can see the entire list of what we spent that on. We spent that on a lot of different areas, a lot of professional development to get ready for virtual learning, as we were starting last year with a virtual learning. distributing technology as we went to a one-to-one initiative, a lot of PPE equipment, COVID coordinator, sub-teachers that we had to hire because of COVID-related absences. And we did purchase a new Clarkston virtual curriculum, and then we had hotspots for our families. So that's what we spent the majority of that, just under $3 million on. And then we received $1.049783 million from Oakland County. They had a portion of CRT funding, and they shared all of that with each of the school districts in Oakland County. This was kind of unique to our county. I don't know how many counties were given this, how many schools were given this. So this was an extra amount. And we spent this on lower class sizes by recalling teachers back and hiring additional teachers, adding a technology staff member to help with the one-to-one initiative, and some more PPE supplies. And then we also received a device rebate of $110,000 that we were able to put back into our capital projects bond to redirect $110,000 to other capital improvements. This was a rebate that was given for all the technology we bought for the one-to-one initiative. And then we also received connectivity funding of just under $45,000, and that was just mainly to buy connectivity software and to allow connectivity during the COVID pandemic. And then we received $1,504.69 that we spent in 2020, also on PPE equipment. And now we're moving forward, and in 2021, we are, at this point, have been approved of ESSER II funds of over $1.4 million. The application has been approved, and we will start receiving the funds as we're spending the money. We are spending it on the Systems of Support program that the board approved last year and we implemented this year, of all the coaches, the literacy, math coaches, and interventions that were talked about earlier this board meeting. This stream of money will cover 12 of those coaches. It also will continue to pay for the 2 NSC teachers and the Pine Knob aides that we spent money on last year. This has to be funds that has to be spent on federal allowable expenditures. And I will share that slide with you towards the end of the presentation of what some of those items are. And then we also have received $2.442 million of Michigan supplemental funds. We have already received this funds, and our plans are to spend it on the similar items that we spent it on last year, just to maintain the same virtual programs, the same PPE, the COVID coordinator, all the items that we added in 2020-21 with the COVID funding, we're going to continue to support with this funding. And this funding it does also have to follow the federal allowable expenditures I will talk about later. And we are required to provide 20 hours per week of person instruction this school year to be able to continue to receive this funding. The ESSER III funding, which is just over, there's 2 pots of that. There's the 2/3 that we've already received. We haven't received, but there's an application out there that we have until December 15th to apply for, and that's just over $2 million. And we're planning on spending that this school year. And then just over $1 million, which is 1/3, which has not been allocated to the district yet, but the state did get approval on October 8th of this funding from the federal government. So hopefully in the next month or so, they will start allocating that to the school districts. We will push that out to 2022-23 because we're allowed to carry it over until June 30th, 2023. That way we don't feel such a tick down when we start losing all this one-time money. We want to try to save some for 22-23. These also have to be spent on federal allowable expenditures. Now, there is some requirements to this ESSER III funding that has not been required by other ESSER funding or other COVID funding. One is we have to spend it on 20% on learning loss. We also have to get community stakeholders' input. So there will be some meetings, surveys going out in the next month or so, asking for community, parents, student, staff. We have to get everybody's input on how to spend this money. And and then we also, this was just some little other pots of money that we've spent this past summer. We also received $55,000 in credit recovery funding. We put on a credit recovery program this summer for 9th to 12th graders. We have received this money already. We've been approved, and we spent it, and we have received it. We are also expecting, I'll know in the next month or two, to receive another $10,000 of innovative funding to help pay for this credit recovery program. And then we also received $7,250 to help give some extra stipends to the teachers and support staff that help provide this credit recovery program. Here's the list of federal allowable expenditures that we are allowed to spend: our ESSER, CARES, ESSER 2, ESSER 3, pretty much all the federal funding that we've received for COVID. These are the 12 items that we're allowed to spend on. We don't have to spend it on all. We can spend it on whatever we choose to. It just has to fall in these 12 categories. I'm not going to go through them all, but if you can see them. And then I wanted to talk about, I just learned about this in the last week, that there's some potential future funding. We have not received any of this funding. It's not been allocated. We do not even know 100% if we're going to receive it. And we have no idea what the amount is. But it's called Section 11T Equalization Funding. And this, from what I've heard from MDE so far, is that 20% of it will have to be spent on loss of learning. We will have to do the community stakeholders' input, just like we have to do with this ESSER 3 funding. And it will not follow the federal allowable expenditure list that I just shared with you on all the other funding followed. This will be only allowed to be used to impact subgroups of disadvantaged students. Like I said, at this point, this funding amount is unknown. It's unallocated. And we hopefully will know in the next 2 or 3 months how much we're receiving if we receive this funding. And we will push it out to 2022-23 school year budget. And do you have any questions on any of this COVID funding or streams of funding or how we've spent it?
Any questions on all these COVID streams of funding? I see none. Please keep. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the report. All right, we have 2 discussion items tonight. 8.1 is participation in Juul lawsuit. Are you leading that discussion?
Sure. Nationally, beginning in California, there's a lawsuit with the Juul labs, which makes the Juul vaping, and they're being held potentially liable for their marketing and other practices of steering their products towards children. Nationally, as part of a larger lawsuit, school districts across the country are joining the lawsuit to be part of things that we've seen with respect to Juul and other vaping devices in school. I think many of our community, as many of you know, it's not any surprise, and Mr. Kern could speak volumes to this, of the struggles that our administrators and teachers have on a daily basis of discouraging and trying to regulating those type of products, those devices out of our schools. They see it daily in the hallways, in bathrooms. Students can do it now to where they have it to where if you can make even a motion up to your mouth, not even leaving any kind of smoke or a trail behind it. They're very, very difficult to stamp out of our schools. They're obviously very, very addictive and a gateway to other nicotine, other products which are very unhealthy for our kids. So it was my recommendation as part of this discussion to join this and with the intention to the board and publicly that if we did receive any funds from a Juul lawsuit, that we would use it to support smoking and vaping cessation programming within our buildings exclusively. That would just be it for that. But I don't have, overwhelming confidence or any crystal ball to say if it would produce much in the way of results, but definitely wanted seeing the impact that it's had on our school district, and all schools feel that it's something I wanted to bring to the attention to the board. And this evening, because of the timing of it in December, I would like kind of a consensus to move forward with pursuing Clarkson schools to be part of it as well.
Dr. Ryan, this letter is dated November 3rd, which I assume is when we got it and why we're seeing it now. And at the end of it, it says, respond by August 31st. So I just wanted, I assume.
I can address that. The original one, this has been going on for several months. I believe they updated it, and I think they failed to update the date. August 30th was the original one. We're still in the window until the beginning of December.
Right. That's the sort of the rub right now, is we wanted to put this on for discussion to see if it's something we even wanted to join. Then the question is, if we have a consensus that we do want to join, I'm going to need someone to make a motion for us to go ahead and approve that, because we have to sign on to this by December 1st, and we won't meet again until after that. So this is sort of a two-part, I guess, discussion, if you will. So that would be kind of question number one here at this moment, is are we even interested in joining this action?
If you recommend it, Dr. Ryan, and you're willing to put the few hours that they say it might take, and I'm happy to support the resolution.
I'll do 100% of it.
I agree.
Mrs. Orrs.
Mr. Need.
I reviewed the contract, and it's as represented. There is no cost charge at all to the district if, in fact, they're not successful. Any fees or court costs would come out of any recovery. So I view this as a no-lose proposition. We may or may not get anything, but we're risking nothing, and we have the potential of having something that'll, at least partly address an epidemic problem in our schools. So I'm fully supportive of this.
Certainly. Ms. Egan?
Yeah, I think it seems to me Mrs. Rogers brought this forward to us, maybe made us aware of it about a year or a year and a half ago. No? Am I not remembering that correctly? But it seems to me that we've talked about this before, and we all agree. We supported it then for the obvious reasons, as Mr. Need just stated, that, no harm comes to us for participating. Right. And I think it does, I like the idea of taking those funds, if there are some funds distributed eventually, to be supporting, educating our students, about these products and the risks.
So I think certainly having had students in the high school for the last, 5-ish years, I think the anecdotal stories alone that I've heard, warrant me understanding and believing that we certainly have the problem in our schools, and I would be very supportive of joining this if you're willing to take it on.
Absolutely.
Mr. Need.
Unless there's anybody disagrees, I'm prepared to make a motion or motion. I would move that the Clarkson Community Schools adopts the resolution authorizing the district to join the Juul lawsuit and approve the attorney-client fee contract between Clarkson Community Schools and the France Law Group, and designating the Superintendent Sean Ryan as our authorized representative.
Support. Okay. Any further discussion from the board? Mrs. McLean, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mr. Heyer.
Yes.
Mrs. Egan.
Yes.
Catalina. Mrs. Carney.
Yes.
Mr. Need.
Yes.
Yes. The motion carries. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, item 8.2 is our master plan facility update. Mr. Goodman, joined tonight by Tom Vandegrind from GMB.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So last month we were here to go over the updated master plan. Originally started in 2016, and so we've presented that. And part of that meeting, we wanted to move into programming of a junior high, a replacement to the junior high based on our findings and the age of the building. We wanted to just dive in that a little bit more. So Tom is going to share with you tonight how busy we've been over the last 3 weeks since that meeting and kind of explain that process.
Yeah, so with the master plan, most of those items you saw were very easily quantifiable. You know, new roofing in this area, some extra restrooms, air conditioning. Those things are fairly easy to quantify. The one item of, you know, what about replacing the junior high, which has been on the list for a long time, certainly was on the 2016 master plan. It's not unlike saying I want to buy a new car. What does that cost? Well, what kind of car? So we've gone through that process of starting to figure out what kind of junior high, what does that involve? So the first component was developing a programming team. Adam's put together a team of representatives from the junior high, basically all the different departments, so they can bring different perspectives and help us look at that, what a new facility might include. That's the first piece we put together. And then throughout the components from there on out, we've been having educational discussions about what a 21st century learning environment looks like. So we did some things, and we'll talk about that when we get into that in a minute. But so we're looking at things like project-based learning is different than what it was in 1959 when your building was first designed. And so what are those kind of things, how do they affect what you might want to do at Clarkston? And so those discussions are weaved in all the things we've been doing with the program. Some of the things you heard tonight, you know, we're looking at environments can help a child learn. And environments can help you feel safer. And so we're looking at things like that. What makes a child feel safe, which the environment helps with some of those things. Individualized learning. Things are not, you know, 30 kids in a room look at the chalkboard and take notes. So how does the environment help that? So the first step we did was develop some tours, and we toured 2 different days, 4 different facilities, secondary facilities throughout the state of Michigan, mostly lower Michigan. But so 4 different facilities. Picture's worth 1,000 words kind of a thing. With the whole group going to those facilities, it really helps people see things and say, that's really what I like, or that maybe doesn't make sense at Clarkston. So we did that for 2 separate days. And then that group, we've gotten together twice now, 2 full days with that group. The first day focused on takeaways from those tours. What were the things, as we were touring, we're all very busy taking photos and looking and having the school that we're visiting explain kind of things they're doing. And we looked at some different kinds of delivery models that schools are using. So they were not all exactly the same kind of school, but things to challenge us that are a little different than what you're doing. But then we spent that first day with all input from that programming team that Adam's put together. What are the things you saw from these 4 different ones? We went through them one at a time. What are the things you think that resonate, that we should be looking at for Clarkston? What are things you think that do not, that we should avoid, that don't make sense? Excuse me, so that was the first day, and then we did some more of that a little bit. Actually, today was a day we spent a full day today finishing that up, and we began the process then of going through every department, I'm going to call it, if you will, that, and talking about them specifically and developing a program. And that program is an architectural language. It's not necessarily like a program like you might have in educational language, but it's a list. I think I described it a little bit last time. It's a list of all the spaces that might be in a building, the quantity of those, how big are they, and then some idea of quality, some idea of the function of that room, what it might be happening in that space that can change the value of it, and then some relationships, where do spaces belong next to each other, et cetera. Those are the things, when we get that all together, that let us start to understand what kind of car we're trying to buy, what kind of options does it have, et cetera, et cetera. And so we went through that full day today, and we got about 70% through, I would say, the departments of the building. So our next steps are to finish that input from the different departments as to what they think their area should be like. And then we'll move into a process of, once we've completed all that input, of starting to create that actual program. And that may be a little more with some of the administration at this point, to create that whole document that lists all those spaces, review that, kind of analyze where it's at. Usually when you go shopping the first time, it's a little over budget, and are we reasonable with this? We'll have to do some of that prioritization and look at that. And then the final step after that will be to take, okay, we have a good program. We think this is what should be in that building, and the relationships and educational goals, that kind of stuff. how do we overlay that on the existing facility? Because at least the plan we're going through right now is that it's a rebuild on the site where the existing junior high is now. And what does that look like? That'll be a very complex process of a mini design, how because you can't tear it all down in one summer and then come back in the fall and have it ready. So it'll be a very much a build and tear down, multiple year kind of a thing. Once we have the program, that'll be the next phase we'll move into. I think that's kind of the process we're in right now. We're right in the heat of it. A lot of discussion with Adam and his group right now. So, anything else you think of?
No. Any questions?
Any questions at this point? Do you want to give us any more of a sneak preview of some of the things that we're seeing at these facilities that we might improve upon, that we might want to consider and improve upon with our current facility?
Sure. Yeah, things have changed a lot since 1959 in education. Your building fits that typical Industrial Revolution model. Right. Just a hallway with lined up classrooms. You start in this classroom, and at the end of your time here, you end up going out the end. Classrooms are all very small, very center of the room focus, front of the room focus, et cetera. So the things I would say that we're seeing, is there anything dramatically different with physical education? Some unique things, but maybe more similar. Arts and music, not dramatically different. The big thing is the educational spaces, the classrooms, and how those come together. A lot more, first of all, space. Your classrooms are very, very small. They're all much larger than that. But a lot more space that supports project-based learning, which means you have space outside of the classroom. There's more freedom to move around. It's not sitting in rows. Much more freedom to move around. These extended learning spaces that are adjacent to classrooms that allow for students to move when they're doing project work, so they're not on top of each other in a small room. Support spaces like breakout rooms where maybe acoustical privacy is needed because you can do a little video. All those kinds of things that support the classrooms that are very visible, especially in an adolescent range of 8th and 9th graders. So they're not hiding, but you can. We've seen a lot of that in the buildings that we've toured, which were all newer buildings. We were looking for that specifically. And then the scale, some of these things that help the individual feel safer is smaller, creating small learning communities versus a 1,000+ student building. You break that down into smaller scales, these smaller communities. So some of that, how you organize the classroom. So I'd say it's heavily very different as it relates to the academic section of the building. And then how those other components are more not departmental and a lot more interdisciplinary stuff, collaboration. How does that work? So how do you weave in sciences and arts and create STEAM kind of things? A lot of those things we've seen. We have not got conclusion on that yet, but that's the things we're discussing, and certainly I'd say it changes the most in that academic section.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time? Ms. McGinnis?
Aside from the fact that we know that renovation to the site is going to be difficult because of the need to use the site for education at the same time, do you foresee the site in total size to be a limitation at any point?
I don't think so. We haven't overlaid that yet, so we haven't seen how this fits on the site. Maybe a sneak peek, if you said, of some things I think that have to happen is it's complex. I've done this actually at a different school before, where it had to stay in its location, and it requires you to build a piece that's out in the front lawn, and then tear down a piece that you move into, and then build a piece on the area you tore down, and then vice versa, and you just keep working your way around. So it becomes very complex. In that scenario, it's not unlikely that school would change to be a 2-story academic scenario, because that allows us to shrink the footprint, to work better on the site that you have, and to fit things in better as you try to do this domino effect of working around the site. So I don't think we're going to have a site constraint. I think it can be done. I know it can be done, but I don't think we'll regret it. Certainly once we overlay it, we'll be evaluating that and saying, does this look like something that makes sense?
So secondary to that is the possibility that building in a new building on that site under the constraints that we perceive to be existing, build and break down and possibly go to a second, have to go to a second story, more costly than building it on a fresh site?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, now there's a big advantage to staying on that site as it relates to your performing arts. At this point, we're still evaluating all options, but we're really finding it hard to say that we should tear down the performing arts section of that building. That's newer. It has some things it could use to make it maybe complete that project, some scene shop adjustments, and they don't have dressing rooms and a few things. But you have the asset of that performing arts center that's pretty big, that might offset if we said, what if we built it on a new site? If we're going to leave the Performing Arts Center there, definitely be cheaper on a new site. But if we're going to tear that down and build it new, we might find that it's cheaper to stay on site. But we'll be evaluating that a little bit so we know that cost. But there is no doubt that that multiple yeared phase thing adds a cost perspective than saying we're going to go to a new site.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll look for continued updates and as we plan out reaching the end of our facilities planning process.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And we've reached item 9, citizen comments. I see Mrs. McLean already racing toward the door to retrieve our sign-in sheets. Citizens are welcome to address the board on any topic as they have signed up to do so. Jacob Vickers, you will be first in line. Thank you for your patience. If you'll approach a microphone and just give me 1 minute while Mrs. McLean races back. And if you'll remember to please state your name and your address, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Jacob Vickers.
Hold on 1 moment, please. Let me get my trusty timer up and running here. Okay, please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Jacob Vickers. I live on 4577 Jerome Road, and I'm here representing the Clarkston Gay Straight Alliance.
Thank you.
Today, I was originally going to come to talk about implementing queer history into our history curriculum currently, but I noticed recently that there's been a very bad bullying issue, especially in the junior high. There was a girl that was targeted for wearing a pride flag one day on social media. So I wanted to address some of the other concerns that I have with the current bullying within Clarkston. An example of this would be, I have heard constantly within the junior high of experience of students, including myself, not in the high school. It's much better there, but there are still a lot of issues in the junior high, being called the F slur or the T slur, or multiple other homophobic or transphobic slurs. I'd like to address this through either implementing more anti-bullying on systems on queer people, and addressing this by education through either wolf times, assemblies, or implementing other things into our curriculum that can educate people about our very existence. I notice a lot of issue comes with this topic due to the fact that our identities are heavily politicized, so it's considered an inherently political topic. But I also want the board and our community to know that our existence is, even though political, has like a very, very big impact on our lives. There's a culture to our community, and we are heavily impacted by the negative aspects within it and the external aspects of it as well. And I also wanted to talk about briefly implementing more things into our current curriculum. Like there are many historical figures, such as the great Michelangelo and Da Vinci, that were known queer figures within history. So I wanted to implement them more so students can see themselves within those historical figures and know that they are seen and heard among our school district. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments tonight. All right. Next, we have Hillary Kubler. Okay. I'll come up here. You can come up here.
Hi, Hillary Kubler, 9244 Lake Ridge Drive. I couldn't hesitate to come up and comment about literacy tonight. So I wanted to say, first of all, I want to thank Ms. Mahoney and Ms. Brazier. I think we've made a lot of great steps in Clarkston. I think we're moving forward, and I know a lot of us have been having conversations on this for a couple of years now. Tomorrow, the Michigan Senate Education Committee will be holding hearings on a set of bills that hopefully will pass to make this a lot more clear for you and for our teachers and educators on what to do in the classrooms. I still feel like in Clarkston we have a wait to fail model. I say that because currently we're not embracing the science of reading in our K-3 instruction. We talked about data tonight. So data, what we know in the state of Michigan and nationally is that 1/3 of our population of students learns to read no matter what we put in front of them. They're proficient readers, and we saw that tonight with 32% of our kids at the top of that green. We saw 1/3 at the very bottom, and those are kids that struggle with learning disabilities like my daughter. And we have 1/3 that are basic readers. And they're really basic readers because we're not putting evidence-based instruction in front of them from the get-go. In Clarkston, all of our K-3 teachers need to be trained in structured literacy. That's what this legislation will address if it passes. If it doesn't pass, it's up to you to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our kids in our classrooms. Research shows 95% of children can read on grade level by the end of 1st grade and moving forward. Those are research studies that are peer-reviewed, that are longitudinal, that are evidence-based. I got that statistic from Dr. Louisa Motes at an MTSS Technical Assistance Center training done by MDE. So it's stuff that's being talked about in the education community, and we need to start really honing in on it here in Clarkston. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments tonight. Next, we have Rebel Molina. State your name and address, and you'll have 2 minutes.
My name is Rebel Molina. I live
Pull it down just a little bit so we can hear you.
My name is Rebel
Thank you.
Molina. I live on Horseshoe Circle. This is my daughter, Natalie.
Nice to meet you.
She attends the junior high. If I talk a little and she says 1 or 2 things, can we just have like a couple more seconds? We might not need it. I would like to say, I want to start with saying something that's kind of negative. And I hear people say all the time that Clarkston is not a racist place. But in August, my whole family came and spoke. We told you stories. We have a very diverse family, diverse with religion, diverse with countries, diverse with languages, you name it, we've got it. My husband spoke. He is a naturalized citizen. He's a firefighter. He's a medical first responder. He was a hero in COVID times. He's also a builder. He was born in a third world country, came here out of a civil war. When he was speaking to you, after his daughter spoke about what happened to her in the back, there were people who are on social media today that used racial slurs about my husband. And then there was another person near the middle, who I won't name, but is a very big proponent in the other group, who proceeded to imitate my husband's accent. Racism is a very real thing in Clarkston, and we are not a horrible family. We're not a political family. We love people. And we moved to Clarkston because we adopted 4 children with severe special needs, and I used to be a link, and I'm studying to be a special education teacher, and I know that this is the place for them, but we are feeling very unwelcome. I would like to say that I really appreciate that you hear us, and that you see us, and that you want to treat us fair, and that you will protect us. The other thing I wanted to just say is everybody gets mad about equity. Equality means that everybody gets the same thing. Natalie wants to show you guys her hands. Go ahead and hold up your hands. Natalie lost her hands in a fire. Guess what? She can't use a computer like everybody else. She needs different things. so that she can access the same curriculum. Equity isn't giving her a handout. It's giving her and my children and any child the resources that they need so that they themselves can make the same progress as everybody else. And Natalie wanted to say
Thank
something.
you.
Are you nervous? Do you not feel like you can do it? Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
gonna say-
Nice to meet you, Natalie. Next, we have Layla Senker. If you'll please state your name and address, and you'll have 2 minutes. Good evening.
So Layla Sanker, 6655 East Lawn Avenue, Clarkston, Michigan. I'm a resident of Clarkston and the Clarkston School District for more than 20 years. My son attended the Clarkston schools from preschool, Funshine Preschool, all the way till his graduation in 2019. This is my first school board meeting, and I hope it's my last. I appreciate your work and the good stewardship of my tax dollars and resources and supports that this district has provided for my son. You see, I've always been really proud of the Clarkston School District. In my work, I get to intersect with school districts all across the state and regionally, as well as with teacher education programs. And what I know is that Clarkston has always been at the forefront of best practices in education. As a parent, I relied on this. I saw the evidence in parent-teacher conferences in my son's learning and the commitment of teachers, support staff, and administrators to advancing the district vision and priorities, which is something you don't always see in a school district. I became concerned with the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the deeply held misunderstandings in our nation and community about what it is, the misrepresentation of misunderstandings about critical race theory, which is not curriculum, and as evidenced in some of the conversation here, misunderstandings about what systemic racism is. I am heartened by the DEI update I saw today. Using trauma-informed practices, culturally responsive teaching, are strong practices that support student learning. They're at the forefront of education practices. Building off students' lived experiences is a strong pedagogical approach. And as we saw with the building construction, education, the literacy initiatives, and the way academic service learning and other priorities have been integrated into that strategy, I believe that this district is on the right path to continue to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just want to say thank you for the work you're doing, and it's work I hope that continues.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it. And finally, tonight, we have Mark Green. Should be on.
Mark Green, Clarkston. President Horst, the board. This issue of CRT that some of us believe is being filtered into the class and some of us arguing it isn't, I think can be settled by pinpointing the core aspects of CRT and proposing a ban that prohibits our teachers from teaching those core aspects to our children. CPU is working on a resolution that will be presented to the board before the December meeting. Our resolution will have similar language as Michigan House Bill 5097 that bans CRT in all Michigan schools. It just passed the Michigan House and is likely to pass the Senate as well. It's probably political suicide if our governor vetoes, but if she does, we can still implement the same ban here to protect our children. The proposed ban will forbid teachers to teach the following. 1, that all individuals comprising a racial or ethnic group or gender hold a collective quality or belief. 2, that individuals act in certain ways or hold certain opinions because of their race or gender. 3, that individuals are born racist or sexist by accident of their race or gender. 4, that individuals bear collective guilt for historical wrongs committed by their race or gender. And 5, that racism is inherent in individuals from a particular race or ethnic group, or that sexism is inherent in individuals from a particular gender. Okay, if CRT is not in our schools and there are no plans to bring it in later, a ban on these 5 items should not be a problem. We can make this proposed resolution public and leave it up to the board to inform the community if CCS is going to embrace CRT or ban it. It should be an easy decision to ban because the 5 items described are horrible, destructive things to teach our children. Let's just get this CRT issue on the record. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. All right, those were all of the citizens who had signed up to address us tonight. I thank everyone for your participation in our democracy. Item 10 is information items. Our next Board of Education meeting is Monday, December 13th, scheduled for 7 p.m. I'm not sure what the location will be. Obviously, we will be announcing it as we get closer to the meeting. I think so. Before we see you next, we will have our Thanksgiving recess for staff and students. So everyone have a safe, healthy, and happy Thanksgiving break. Item 11 is adjournment. May I have a motion, please?
I move we adjourn.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.